Guess who's back? Back again. Brother Run. Tell a friend. Guess who's back and still black? Guess who's back and still black? It's your friend, Brother Run. In for the win. And this is We All Be News Free Dixie for the 21st century. We all be News Free Dixie for the 21st century. Got a dandy one coming in for you all. Hope y'all are tuning out to tune in to get in where you fit in, baby, baby. It's going to be one for the books. Got the Honorable one and only Judge Joe Brown coming back on. We All Be platform, one of our most in-demand and popular guests will be holding it down with us for a few moments out your morning. I hope that we can feed you, baby, baby. This is a very important message. I feel compelled. So much going on right now, and it'll be a crime to keep quiet because in times of great deceit and deception, our voices of truth, discernment, transparency, integrity needs to be maximized and amplified and maximized. I had a dear friend, a Jegna, the late great Judge, the Honorable Judge DeArmy Bailey. And he used to tell me, Brother Ron, you must amplify. So we must tell it like it TI is and make the truth fall where it falls because a hit dog, it hollers, and there's a lot of dogs out here. Oh, there's a lot of that going on right now. Do not be discouraged, but be encouraged. Do not be discouraged, but be encouraged because we are here, baby. And we're gonna bring in the judge again. He's going through a lot right now. Judge is very viral. Call him Mr. Viral Man. Viral, Mr. Viral Man. He's gonna share some gems with us. He had a lot of stuff going on in New York City. They just indicted the mayor of the city, who gave P. Diddy the key to the city. They both got indicted within a week of each other, it seems. P. Diddy was given the key to the city of New York. New York. He was given that on September 23rd, 2023. Now look at where we at September 27th, 2024. You got both Diddy and the NYC mayor have been indicted by the feds because, like what Pac said, the feds is watching. The feds is watching. The feds is watching, man. So they throwing the book, but I'm suspect about the charges as well as the timing of it all. The charges as well as the timing of it all. Very suspect stuff. So who did he anger? See, look at what Diddy. When you start looking at the Diddy situation, it was like a lot of sensationalism. Like they know we low vibrational as a people because we are under mind control. Social media is MK Ultra. You could be triggered by all types of things, but stay vigilant, stay vigil, stay on your P's and Q's because the games. If you start looking at the P. Diddy thing, right? And I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy realist. I don't believe in coincidences. But the fact that P. Diddy took on one of the largest liquor distributors in the world or liquor companies in the world, one of the largest liquor companies, top 5 in the world, sued them in their court, won in their court, but yet he is charged with what he's charged by the feds, right? Because P. Diddy was trying to make a boss move. He was trying to make one of them Sam Cooke moves where he owns his stuff. No, Ciroc was not something that he owned. He was brought on to be the mascot spokesperson for Ciroc. When he was brought on years ago to promote Ciroc, they were in the red. But P. Diddy, Puffy, very successful music mogul, award-winning P. Diddy, Sean Combs, put them very much in the black. See, y'all keep on talking about black is dead, black is negative, but in big business, to be in the black is to be, we're in the money. That's in the black. And P. Diddy recognized if I could do that for this brand, they have not awarded me like they should have for my ability to help Chirac elevate to a pop culture status. So he wanted a bigger cut of the pie. Not only that, he wanted the same organization to provide the appropriate amount of resources to promote his own brand of liquor. Pour out a little liquor. You know what I'm saying? I don't drink liquor, but the fact that P. Diddy had the nerves to take on this company, to call them out on their corporate racism and all that stuff, and to beat them at their own game, that was what they call a Pyrrhic victory, a Pyrrhic or Pyrrhic victory, where he won the battle, but it looked like he lost the war because they got their get back. Because like y'all don't understand, y'all think it's about just us or justice. It's just us. Because like y'all look at the same system to give you justice. This is the same system that put an innocent man to death legally. Marcellus Williams was put to death legally in the state of Missouri, or y'all call Missouri or Missouri. I call it the state of Missouri. Descendant, a legacy descendant of Dred Scott. They put this man to death when there was no physical evidence connecting him to that horrendous crime that happened back in '98, the unfortunate stabbing death of a white woman in her 40s. Even the prosecutors had a change of heart. They didn't feel like he should be put to death for something he didn't do based on the empirical evidence. He did not do. There was no evidence to say that he did that. But yet, you know, they always sacrificing black men for political seasons. This cycle, I can remember, y'all probably can't recall, like with Troy Davis. Y'all remember Troy Davis? The brother down in Georgia that was on death row for a long time for a crime he probably didn't even commit. For a crime he probably did not even commit. Troy Davis, look it up. This happened. They put him to death on Obama's watch, right? I ain't gonna never forget that night that they put Troy Davis to death. That was September 21st, 2011. Do you remember that time in September? Strange fruit time. They put that brother to death, and the person that probably was the star witness or something like that for the prosecution was probably the person that actually committed the crime of killing the, I believe, law enforcement or security officer. I think it was law enforcement officer. Y'all look up that case because we got a short memory. But Troy Davis was put to death, even former president and son of Georgia, whose birthday is coming up. Jimmy Carter is about to be 100 years old or 100 years young in October. He's about to be 100 years young in October. Former President Jimmy Carter said, do not do this. This is a son of Georgia, former governor of Georgia. Obama didn't do nothing. Obama, the so-called black president, y'all talking about Donald Trump in Central Park 5, Obama had some type of power. He's the president of the United States. They couldn't do anything to help if there was reasonable doubt, because there was a lot of reasonable doubt in that situation with Troy Davis. But they put him to death anyway. I ain't gonna never forget that night, because I think I was broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio. I'm not sure. I might have been broadcasting, talking maybe to Sister Denise Johnson, who is the mother of the late Gregory Johnson, who was found dead under questionable circumstances in his almost predominantly white fraternity house up in San Jose State out in Cali. I think I was talking to her tonight. I'm not sure. But I can remember looking at the news when the word of his execution, when they finally executed this innocent black man down in Georgia back in September 21st, 2011. I saw the protesters talking about some, they were singing some, we shall overcome, we shall overcome, we shall overcome someday. Meanwhile, police officers were doing donuts. There was ghost riding the whip doing donuts, sirens blazing for the death of this innocent black man. And Dick Gregory was involved with the family. The sister, she died probably of a broken heart, what they did to her brother. But never forget Troy Davis. Y'all talk about Marcellus Williams, but the man of the hour, of the moment, of this Trump geist. The man is the undisputed heavyweight champion of unfiltered truth And justice for just us, the one and only, the honorable Judge Joe Brown. How you doing, Brown?
All
Brother Brown.
right, young man. I'm glad to be here.
It's an honor to help you on, man. Boy, it's so
Oh,
much going on. But
you're
you out
one of our
there
stars,
right now. You helping create the narrative for us, the people. We appreciate it.
but you're one of our stars. You're the up and coming.
I appreciate it. I accept that endorsement. But I
All
gotta ask you, Judge. I gotta ask you because you a Memphis guy and you know Memphis law. You know Shelby County all that very well. I gotta ask you about your take on the young Dolph murder trial where they found that guy Justin Johnston, aka Straight Drop. They gave him life in prison. What have you been keeping up with that case or that trial by any chance?
somewhat. It's business to me. I did it for 50 years. I'm kind of retired. But go
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
Question on it.
Yeah, but what do you think about the fact that they found him guilty so fast? I mean, it's quite damning, I guess, with the evidence. But it was a person dressed in a mask. Was it really him? And also the fact that Big Juke, the brother of Yo Gotti, who was no, he was the second in command of the record label. They're claiming that he was the guy that confirmed the hit. He provided the money for the hit.
Well, when you get organized criminality, you get some problems, and sometimes they get beyond the local district attorney's office and what they conceive of. The word that's out there is that the guy that just went to trial was taking a dive because he messed up, and he can get life or he can die for some other things. Dolph himself knew that things were going to get rough before it happened, and it is what it is, and they do what they do. The truth of the matter is unless somebody comes right out and starts running his mouth, uh, homicides are pretty hard to solve when the killer has no personal connection with the victim, or it's not in the perpetration of a robbery or something and the fool is caught on camera, like tends to be right now, or you do something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little quick anecdote. I had a case in my courtroom. It was a drive-by situation. 5 people got shot. 3 or 4 of them died. They caught the idiots because they went to Kinko's and Xeroxed 300 copies of the commercial appeal article, and they autographed them saying it was us and started handing them out bragging about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I didn't keep up with it. It was just business as usual in that industry. There's a lot of money to be made, all sorts of compromises that happen, and people that borrow money, people that get others to invest in a project. They have typically some big score selling some kilos, and it doesn't work out, or grams, and it doesn't work out, and somebody winds up getting snuffed. So it is what it is.
But what do you think about the fact that Yo Gotti's brother's been dragged into this? He was deceased. They killed him at the beginning of the year, actually, and now they're saying that he was the guy that helped finance the so-called hit on young Dolph.
Maybe, and a lot of deaths just look like one thing, aren't really for that reason. There is an active trade in, what shall we say, arranged passings,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
Memphis is unique in that it is probably the first degree murder capital of America, but most of those murders are passed off as accidental or natural deaths.
Right.
And nobody really hears about them. So they get underreported, and they're done professionally. Sometimes the professionalism is bad.
Mm-hmm.
That particular wipeout on Gotti, you know, young Dolph, I mean, That's old time ragged hit. You take him out confection shop, broad daylight, and he's got his back turned to a large plate glass window. That's just not good when somebody's after you. And there was an attempt out on the West Coast and down in Florida too. So I mean, how much forewarning do you have before you react to it with proper discretion? See, a lot of times what you'll find with some of the folk that do some of the crazy stuff out in the streets and some of the celebrity artists, they have some personal problems and they're suicidal. That's why sometimes they go out when they do drugs, and sometimes their lesser brethren go out suicide by cop.
Yes, sir.
There's also suicide by neighbor, suicide by circumstance. And they know they've messed up their life that's inside their own skulls, not the one that everybody's looking at aren't too cool. So they've given up. Bam. It's an interesting thing to get into the mind of the perpetrators and the victims of some of these things.
Yeah, I'll just look at the body language of Justin Johnson. It's like he just realized finally that he really screwed up his life from his body language. I'm not an expert, but the fact that Cornelius Smith, the other alleged killer, singing like a canary, singing like Aretha Franklin, whoever, all this stuff, which is fascinating to me. The fact that they did the hit allegedly for $100,000, but only got $800. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but I'm thinking probably somebody else got it. I had a would-be father-in-law back in 1971. His daughter was absolutely drop-dead gorgeous and beautiful. We were engaged, and he used to run the numbers bank for the mob out in South Central L.A. He was from Louisiana, kind of a Geechee-looking guy. Looked Italian, but he was mostly black. And he messed up on some money. So they gave him a choice, die or take a dive. So he wound up taking the dive. And when he got out, they gave him kind of a retirement, which was some apartment buildings and some hamburger stands to run. So he had to take that dive, and he wound up doing 1 year, 1 day in the California penitentiary system because he was instructed to take that dive.
Wow.
You know.
What do you think is? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
Go ahead. I mean, I didn't have anything to add on that.
Yeah, but what do you think about what the guy said? Cornelius Smith, the alleged co-killer, he said that, he confirmed that 50,000 was paid for attorney fees from the music label in question, like Yo Gotti's music label, where his brother was the second in command. What do you think about that take?
I have no idea. If somebody got into it, they might find something different. They might not.
But what would be your advice to Yo Gotti? This is his label. His brother got killed. That was #2, and they're tying him to this horrendous crime of the assassination of young Dolph. What would you advise them to do? Is he in trouble of facing a RICO? His organization for what? They're connected like that. The paper trail.
I'd vote Kamala Harris's ass the hell out of any public office and anything that had to do with them. These guys just throw stuff, even if they don't have stuff. So anyway.
I mean, but what do you think about this? I know you did some coverage of the YSL RICO trial, Young Thug and them down in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Is rap the new organized crime? Is hip hop new organized crime?
No, it's not the new organized crime. It's been what it's been for years. The Jewish-run industry makes a lot of money off of it internationally. So there's this up and down where people fight over the crumbs that fall off the big table. So there is this downing of masculinity all around the world, and young people from Tokyo to Berlin, they look at the imagery of gangster rap video and it looks masculine to them, so they crave it. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So it sells internationally. In fact, more so almost than it does in America. So the people that deal with the distribution, they don't want any changes. Some of the artists want to run changes, but the only thing they're permitted to do, unless they rebel, is to get fouler about what they're saying and more irrelevant and harmful. So they fight amongst themselves for status, which is encouraged, because if you're going to be a thug, it helps if you have some street cred with it.
Now, it's interesting because you saying all that, I was thinking about years ago back in the 90s, because I love Tupac, I love rap and all that, but C. Dolores Tucker and Reverend Calvin Butts were very critical of the content produced by these artists. And I used to thought they was like fuddy duddies, they was out of touch. But now I'm looking at what's been happening in the last 30 years. I think they was right on the money to try to police some of this stuff that's being put out there as
Yeah.
so-called music.
Well, see, I was out at UCLA in the 60s. I graduated before the 60s were out. And I heard the plots and the plans out there. And Hollywood was trying to get the movie industries back on their feet since television was knocking them out. They got the idea that instead of having the format of 2 movies every Thursday and Sunday, changing no matter what, get one, run it as long as people would come. You could save money in the production. And if you went after the Negro, no black, no Afro-American, no black, they really want to see themselves, so we can make a lot of money off of them. And okay, are we going to try to lift them up or just go to the lowest common denominator and get the money? Let's go to the lowest common denominator. Meanwhile, they are a big threat, so let's go propagandize them so they will mess themselves up. And you started getting 50 years of glorification of dysfunction that spread through the whole country. And a lot of it was predicated for another reason just besides getting black folk down. In fact, I suspect in retrospect that the objective wasn't so much to get black folk down as to use black folk, since a lot of the young white guys thought black guys were the epitome of masculinity. They would follow. So it was a good way to get masculinity in the country to self-destruct. And that came out of the war, because there was this thing about war is a man thing. So you have to change boys the way they are raised so they don't become men and they become emotional and they can cry and they can think about the soft. It is all about love, man, this nonsense. So we come here and opportunistic people fell for the game. Some of the female persuasion, they fell for the welfare trap and got subsidized out of the job market and advancement in society and just became slaves on a plantation with no cotton to pick. And the other enterprising group on the other side went into, man, it's all about pimping and bitches and hoes, man. Like you got to run your bitches, man. And they started simping more than pimping. And that ramped up into a whole lot of other negative stuff. You got Superfly. You had Black Caesar glorifying the drug trade and murder. And you got hopelessness, no cause, no purpose, and you have a real live mess. And then you get the exploitation on the other end, like the incompetents that are in office here in Memphis, they can't even walk out in the streets, except some of the older ones who aren't as into what some of the newer ones, like, out the mayor, he's got to go out with 8 cops to guard him every place he goes, even to a restaurant. Folks folly. It's interesting. You see Doc Harrington, he's hanging around in.
I know you like Houston's or something like that. I knew it was a stomping ground back in the
by himself. But you see the current mayor, he can't even go to an affair without 8 cops, 2 squad cars tied up bodyguarding him. You see Cohen, the congressman, he's got 3 black SUVs meet him at the airport every time he flies. And you see the 8th district congressman, his wife comes and picks him up. So what's going on here? They've got a mess in this damn city. They don't know what to deal with, how to deal with it. Don't have a clue. And it's kind of ludicrous because in the past, the people that ran stuff, they were kind of gangsters, so they could pull it off. These are just punks and sissies, and they go out there and they rip the people off. So there's nothing for anybody from old to young to look at.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, and it showed you how weird Memphis is and backwards, because people criticize Dolph for coming back to the hood. He didn't have a lot of bodyguards. He only had his brother with him at the cookie shop, making a cookie run for his mom. But he was very comfortable with the old neighborhood and stuff. He did things for the community, which I think is I think it's sad though, because you look at Atlanta. I look at Killer Mike. I look at T.I. I look at how they're well respected in their communities. How they're able to operate and open businesses. How they have a direct line to the city hall, to the mayor's office. How they get that respect. Dolph should have had that same type of respect if he was trying to do stuff. See, my thing is, yeah, the music could have been better, but where are the elders? Where are the guidance of the people? They say, brother, I love what you're doing, but you could do it like this. This man was still a young man, but he had courage to come back home and invest in people. Yeah. And he got shot down for it.
Yeah, but you see, the point is, when I grew up in South Central LA, you could walk around the corner, even from junior high school. You looked around to see who the hell was down there, because you didn't want to run into the right people. Wrong people.
Yes, sir.
And if you're going to go gangster, you have to take the precautions, and he doesn't need to be making a cookie run for his mama, and his mama doesn't need to be sending him out there. You know where you saw this whole thing is, remember Boys in the Hood, where the mama, Ice Cube's character, she couldn't stand his daddy, so the one she loved, it was the dummy that played football,
Ricky.
Yeah, he went down and he's scratching off on a instant win thing, and he looking, and that was where I grew up. Actually, that was the Crenshaw area, and Crenshaw, when I was around, got better, but I was over on 58th Place in Normandy, if you know LA, and 58th, 62nd, Budlong Avenue Elementary, John Muir Junior High. So, we came to school one day. I was in the 9th grade, and somebody that had just graduated from the 9th grade and gone to Manual Arts High School. We came in hanging from the flagpole. This dude was hung by the rope for the flagpole, and his pants were off except around one ankle, and somebody had slit his belly open, so his guts are hanging down about 8 or 9 feet, pooled on the ground, smelled like the devil, bloody mess and flies all over the place. We just said, man, dude must have messed up. Who did he get mad? Wow. And by the way, we didn't get 15, 20 counselors coming in there because, oh my God, the students are suffering from those traumatic stress syndromes. Oh my God. Like, we just said, damn, dude, must have got somebody real angry.
That's a message. Yes, sir.
And we just went on into class. Like, damn, man.
This before rap music, right? So this always been there. That violence always been. That's part of America, though. That's America.
Yeah, but
we always been violent.
But you see, there's another thing too about. 1965, August, when we had that uprising that some people call a riot, it wasn't like the way they do now, where it was just total frustration. There was a purpose to it, and a lot of hostility and aggression got taken away. And I remember I had a girlfriend. She lived about 8-9 blocks from where the whole thing started. And I went over to visit her. So she had run with her dad someplace on an errand. And her mother wanted me to go to the local convenience store to pick up, I think, milk or something like that. So I did. And when I'm walking out, there's this dude standing on the corner. He go, man, where are you from, man? I said, well, I'm independent, man. He said, well, yeah, all right, man. Next time, I'm just standing there watching. Somebody came up, where are you from, man? Dolph, man. Are you all right? Where you from, man? De La Soul, man. Where you from? De La Soul, man. Where you from? Businessman. Make your run, fool. Boom, boom, boom. Fired 3 caps at him. Well, the interesting thing is 2 weeks after everything settled down, I'm running another errand for my girlfriend's mama, right? So I come out, same situation. This dude's standing on the corner. I'm saying, oh, man, here we go again. So when this guy came down around the corner that he had fired 3 shots at, he said, hey, man. He said, man, what you want, man? He said, man, I want to apologize, man. I was foolish, man. You know, like, hey, I apologize, man. So everybody, well, you know, burn, baby, burn, man. You know, that was from Roscoe the Magnificent. You know, he popularized that in L.A. That was his thing before the uprising. So there weren't but 2 black-on-black homicides for the next year and a half in L.A. There were no robberies, no rapes, no assaults, no burglaries, you name it. LAPD wouldn't go in there unless they were riding 6 deep in a squad car, and they'd look straight ahead, which is a difference. They used to go out like hunting stuff, a myth. People standing on the bus stop, waiting for a ride, you know. Hey, man, you don't like this guy? You want a piece of this? Here it is. We'll take our guns off, man. You want a piece of this action? Like, what the hell are you doing? See, that's the way it used to be in L.A. But after that, it just smoothed out. And when they had that ride, it was interesting. If there was a Korean business, Jewish business, didn't make any difference what. If they treated the people nice, somebody or somebodies would stand out front and say, hey, leave these guys alone. They treat us all right. And they'd go on. But every place that treated folk in a ratchet fashion, they were gone. And all of the ragged, falling down buildings, they got burnt to the ground, but they put people to work to clean it up. And in 2 or 3 months, it looked like they had an inverse gentrification process where the hood got cleaned up and all of the claptrap, tore down, broke down, trashed out places were gone. So there was a buildup. Johnson was in office, and black folk did not look at Lyndon Baines Johnson as a villain. They looked at him as Abraham Lincoln number 2.0. Johnson said, I shall not seek nor accept the nomination of my party for another term as president. People just fell apart. And when Nixon got in, they just kind of gave up hope. And by then, most of the organizations that had sprung up to do something in the community were infiltrated by snitches, whores, pimps, simps, agents, officers, undercover, you name it. So you walked in and there are 45 people in there, 20 of them are working for somebody or trying to destroy the whole operation. So it just kind of fell apart. And then the gang started coming back up. And one young man that had been on my playground when I was a playground director, Tookie Williams, he helped co-found the Crips. So, you know, it is what it is.
But like, well, I'm listening to everything you're saying. But my thing is, like, even when they think about Tupac and Dr. Mutulu Shakur, his stepfather, they developed a code called the Thug Life Code. You had people that had a G code back then, like even the Chicago, Jeff Fort and Larry Hoover, they had a G code. You had a code of the streets that everybody had to respect if they're going to engage in this game. There are no rules. Like even with the young Dolph, I mean, I keep this weird, young Dolph and Yo Gotti situation, where are the OGs saying y'all need to calm down, to de-escalate? We don't have no elders
Well,
to step
here,
in like that with that type of status in
here's
the
the difference.
hoods.
Here's the difference. What you're calling OGs, we weren't OGs at the time. We were youth. And what we did, it was kind of a self-deception. We fantasized that we were revolutionaries.
Okay.
So,
And there they go. Judge about to drop this knowledge. There they go. There they go. See, it's a okay. I got you, Judge. We here. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. See, what happens is we fantasized that we were revolutionaries. We started talking about, are you ready for the revolution? And, you know, you dress so that if it hit the fan, you would be ready. We were not ideating on being gangsters and thugs and pimps and, you know, celebrities and drug dealers and all of that kind of thing. So we kind of just said, man, you know, I'm bailing on this. A lot of us, we just sit around and talk about it, man. I'm bailing on this. You can't go back to this. It's so infiltrated, man. We all wind up dead in jail. And see, they were killing people. And I'm not talking about killing people for gangster stuff. I'm talking about those 3-letter organizations were going around literally killing people. And, you know, like you get 1969, you say, man, I know 17 people that I knew 3 years ago that were active in the movement. They're dead now. See, it wasn't just Martin Luther King. It was all of the young leadership was being gunned down or whatever. So it was like you were in a war zone. People didn't go anywhere where they weren't armed if you were active. It's like, yeah, you might be violating the law with concealed carry, but it was better than just being gunned down and not being able to take anybody with you. So it was kind of a situation that was intense. And we were looking at stuff like the Battle of Algiers and reading Franz Fanon's Wretched of the Earth and things like that. Looking at Africa Audio, which you should see if you can ever find a copy, a very graphic documentary about what was going on in Africa. And this is how we rolled. But then, you know, within a very few years, this welfare receipt thing and all of the baby mamas who had decided that having babies so they could get a check and do nothing else but flack back to get it. And the ones that wanted to go revive the old gang thing, it was like, man, this is going downhill real fast. They got no time for this. And we tried to talk to them, and you could. But the problem is they lost their manhood. And that's what I have a problem with. That feminization of the country was spreading fast from the bottom up. And you talk to guys and they'd ideate like girls, you know, like gold diggers. You know, it's like, man, what's wrong with you, man? Men don't think like this. And we're just in our mid-20s. Right? Well, what's the matter with you? Well, man, I'm going to get my women. Man, what you mean a woman take care of you, fool? Men don't do that. But you see, that's by the mid-70s, and it got poisonous worse from there, from the bottom up. And rap, which was interesting, it started out kind of a fascinating way. You had people who rapped like Gil Scott-Heron. Jackson, Tennessee is where he's from. With the Jazz Messengers, you had Louis Armstrong, Satchmo Armstrong. He'd put that trumpet down and get to talking. You know, it's nothing new, but it changed in terms of what it was about. And it was, at first, it wasn't bad. They had these events in New York where you had the DJs, and the DJs
Mm-hmm.
would throw these block parties outside, and they'd get on the mic while they're spinning records, and they'd get to talking.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have these competitions in New York, Chicago, and little bit, but not much in LA, because rap didn't really hit LA.
Yeah.
And they would have contests to see who can run the best game. And see, that came from a time when most of the people from 35, 40 under were used to running the dozens, where, that was our recreation out on the playground, for recess or lunch. You'd be talking about, yeah, man, I want to say nothing about your mama, man, but blah, 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 blah. So everybody would have these witty comebacks and everybody get to laugh, and then it would be great entertainment. So they would have contests to see who was essentially not so much the best stand-up comedian, but
Mm-hmm.
who had the best lines. And then it went from ego rap, which is what I called it back in the 70s, which was I'm so this, I'm so that, which wasn't bad. And then it started morphing into something a bit darker, and then it started to be glorification straight flat out of dysfunction. And then
Yeah.
the N word got popular, which had just sort of disappeared from the black vocabulary, except from the women on welfare. And they were the only ones that were using that N word about the early 1970s. But they taught all these babies they had, who by the time you got to the 80s, they were in their late teens or early 20s, and it got to be real poisonous. So the black problem that I'm looking at with the whole industry right now is it's too feminized. Too many of the rap stars, artists, they're into what happens when some people come out of the penitentiary and they don't get rid of their sexual taste that they acquired or perhaps perfected in the penitentiary. I have a friend that was doing a thing 30 years ago on, shall we say, sexuality in the prisons and in the jails. And the stats were, as if somebody did 9 months time, there was a 92% probability that they had engaged in multiple homosexual contacts, either voluntary or involuntary. And I know I had clients, they'd get out, whereas before they went in, they'd have 4 lady friends putting up the fee for them. And when they got out, they'd have 1 or 2 lady friends and be living with 4, and the lady friends would want their money back. Lawyer Brown, I want my money back, honey. Why? You're not going to get it. What's the matter? That fool, he got 2 boyfriends. He be down there and he be stealing my Kotex because his butt be bleeding.
Oh,
And,
ooh.
I ain't going to go
Hey,
talk to
Vice
him.
President Tampon Tim, right? Or potential Vice President Tampon. He believe tampons in boys' restroom. But I want to ask. I got to back it up because you got me thinking. Like you said, how the movement was decimated by government interference. Like in
That
so many
wasn't
ways.
government interference. It's like bait. They
Mm-hmm.
put it out there. You didn't have to take it, but it was so easy. See, it started off with the young sisters. All they had to do was flat back and get a check. I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you one little anecdote that explains it. We
Okay.
had a program in the late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Cliff Stewart, the late martial artist supreme,
Mm-hmm.
and myself and some other people, we got together with a couple of black professors out at UCLA, and we put this together, and we dealt with the Black Student Alliance around Los Angeles. So in those days, before Ronald Reagan started doing his thing, the university or college education in California was essentially free. You needed money to live off of. So we would get people money to live off of, and we would be able to get them in some kind of college or university in the LA County area. So I remember we went to, where was that? Nickerson Gardens out there in LA. And we had 4 sisters that volunteered, and they were filling out the paperwork in the rec room. And me and Cliff and this guy named John, we were talking to the folk, and we were getting, man, this for real? What I gotta do, man? I gotta get the hell out of here. I can't, man. My brother got shot last week, man. He survived, man, but I gotta get the hell out of here. So, well, the paperwork's over in the rec room. Go do it, and we'll assess it and find someplace we can get you in. But I promise you, we'll get you in. Sister came up. I got to get the hell out of here. This is just poison. Now, this particular sister I have in mind actually made something. She wound up getting a PhD. She was from the hood, but she helped it out. She died of breast cancer years later, and all of her children went and did something in the LA area. Well, okay, we get to the next some fool. Look, my social worker tell me I gotta come down here. Y'all sign this shit. I ain't gonna work on. You think I'm gonna? Hell no. All I'm gonna do is flat black and pop. And I'm giving myself check all I need. And all you fools sitting up there trying to sniff up on it anyway. Well, no, we're not signing off on a damn thing. Not to help you out to do that. You know, you need to be being a self-sustaining black person. I ain't self-sustaining nothing but gapping my legs and get myself knocked up and get a bigger check. Well, the actual fact of the matter is she died in a shootout in an armed robbery. Her brother got killed who was in there. And to show you how absolutely ridiculous it was, she already had some children. She had had one kid when she was 11 years old. So when that kid was 16, he was with mommy trying to do an armed robbery. So her 16-year-old son got shot to death. She got shot to death, and her brother got shot to death in an armed robbery. That's how she wound up. But she wound up having 17 kids. And that was back before they started cutting the check off, saying this is all you're going to get no matter how many you have. It took a while for the word to get around, but it started. Well, it removed the incentive. And I had that when I was a judge. I told you about that incident. 57-year-old woman. I'll repeat it briefly. I had a 57-year-old woman in my courtroom, 1994, charged with felony drug and theft charges. She had a 43-year-old daughter in there. She had a 34-year-old granddaughter in there. She had a 21-year-old great-granddaughter, and the 21-year-old great-granddaughter had an 11-year-old great-great-granddaughter, and the 11-year-old was pregnant with her second child, which would be the great-great-great-granddaughter, and this woman isn't but 59 years old by the time all this developed. And the 11-year-old had become 13, and the 21-year-old had become 23. So by the time this woman, 59 in 1996, got to 2000, she was 63, and she had like 3,400 lineal descendants. She had one idiot in my courtroom who was a great-great-grandson. That fool was 29 years old and had 61 outside kids by 57 different baby mamas.
Wow.
See, that's one of the problems that nobody talks about. So some of that got to be poison. And if you look at the rap thing, it's kind of interesting when you see in your mind's eye what you're looking at. You see in the video, you see the half-naked women bouncing around, and it looks like they're sexual objects to the guy that is doing the rapping. Actually, the truth of the matter is that's his mama, his grandmama, his favorite aunts, and their friend girls. And if you saw them a generation or two behind where they are right now with the imagery they have. You would have seen grandmama in 1990, 1989, 86. She's
Mm,
sitting out 42 years old, which isn't that old, but she's got on a little bitty halter and some knit hot pants or shorts with her butt cheeks all out. She's drinking a 40 ounce and smoking a joint. She's trying to get laid, and her daughter out there is half naked too, and so are all the rest of her children, her daughters, and
mm-hmm.
their friend girls, and the sexual objects that you see on the screen are the female relatives. So somebody's got to have street cred to be able to play that off these days, because that's the kind of thing that the international market wants, and the Jewish community that's making great profit off of this is pushing. I don't have anything against them for being able to find a fool that will do that, but that's money
Well,
in the bank for a lot of people but us.
but the thing about, I want to get back to the 69. You talking about how in 1969, people don't understand at the beginning of 69, you lost two of your classmates, John Huggins and Apprentice Bunchy Carter.
Yeah,
At the
I
end of
was there.
69, now at the end of 69, you lose Chairman Fred Hampton and Mark Clark in Chicago. And what I want
Yeah,
people to
well,
understand, well, I want people to understand this, because like I got to make it plain, because people got to understand the government did interfere in the black community being decimated. And I'm talking about a couple ways. Whereas,
oh hell yes, they did.
young Dolph, he reminds me, people used to joke, he kind of looked like Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture. He kind of looked like him. Kwame Ture or Stokely Carmichael was very gifted with the oratorical skills. Same thing with H. Rap Brown. So the rappers would have been the revolutionaries 60 years ago. They would have been revolutionaries. They co-intel pro the revolutionaries to becoming just entertainers. And and,
No,
and
here's the
being,
thing, the
well, I'm
difference.
gonna say,
Here's the
but being
difference.
subversive. Now, also go back to black exploitation, where you had Sweetback Badass Song, which was about being revolutionary. Earth, Wind, and Fire did the soundtrack. Dr. Bill Cosby helped finance that for Melvin Van Peebles. But then they used that to say revive Hollywood through black exploitation. Everything that deals with black people is about empowering other folks, but they use us to
Yeah,
be exploited. That's the end game. But also, James Earl Jones just passed. I want people to look at the movie Claudine with him and Diane Curl, where James Earl Jones was a sanitation worker. He was Diane Curl's boyfriend, Claudine's boyfriend. But when that little petite white social worker would come to the home, where he had to go, he had to hide in the closet. He's a man that had to hide in the closet, but the government have utilized their resources to break up the family, starting with the black family, because she
yeah.
couldn't get
When I
no
first,
resources from the government, because she had all them kids if she had a man in the house. So the
well,
government
see,
always
here's
been
the thing.
complicit in breaking up the black family from the days of slavery.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. When I first started at Legal Services here in Memphis, that's 50 years ago, our one of our number one cases, types of case, was getting a check cut back on after some social worker was sitting at the end of the block with binoculars watching to see if some man went by to take care of his son or daughter out of the multiple children that this woman may have had, and play daddy for the rest of them. So
Mm-hmm.
that just got blocked out. The other thing too was this ratchet juvenile court down here.
Yeah.
Judge, that ain't none of my child. She been with this white man. Boy, don't you put no white man's name in your mouth. Turner was the judge down there. He'd use the N word freely up in open court. Say, nigga, just don't say nothing to me up in here. You better not dare put that white man's name in your mouth. Tell you what,
Mm-hmm.
dark as you are, you keep feeding that boy and he'll darken up to look just like you. See, so people, this was the game. They had to name a father, and nobody wanted to be bothered because of the ratchet way they were running stuff down at juvenile court. They didn't have DNA test or anything then, and these guys were getting people put on them that weren't their children. And years later, I did a lot of pro bono work just helping folk
Mm-hmm.
down there. And, you'd go in and you'd sneak a DNA test, and this guy's been paying for 12 years on a kid ain't even his. He never did claim. He just got told you sign or you go to jail. And see, there was a lot of that. So it was just destroying the black community. But one difference between Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, and such back then, you didn't push moving drugs. Panther Party didn't push moving drugs. Panther Party, John Huggins and Bunchy Carter, I recruited them to UCLA. Hell, I was in the building when the killing went down. Somebody kicked in my door, and this is something that didn't even get published. My door and somebody else's, and some other assassins went up there. I wasn't in my office, but they put 4 bullet holes in the back of my chair. Me and Elaine Brown were just leaving when these folk ran down the hallway, you know, and John had been shot twice in the back. He was dead, but he didn't know it quite then. And he fired 6 shots at them running right past Elaine and I going down the hallway, hit one of them in the back. He flinched, but he kept running. But by the way, he hit him in the back with a .357 Magnum. So he just kept running, and they never did get him. So, you know, this was the way they went. And they were part of the US organization, Ron Karinga and the US organization. By the way, they started Kwanzaa for the specific purpose of getting black folk to talk. And I went to the first session they had in Leimert Park, 1966 on Crenshaw. And they had this peculiar habit. They'd walk around, and he had gotten some of his followers trained and taking shorthand. Brother, what you taking shorthand notes for? The Mylana needs to know what's going on. 3 weeks later, the FBI calls you in, and they're quoting you exactly. Yeah, this dudes took the shorthand notes. And then found out when they started scaring LAPD had this SIS unit, Special Investigative Services unit, that they sicked on black folk. And you'd get these other cops that would start collaborating with you because they got scared because they said something is going on. You know, this ain't cool up in here. Why are we not, you know, we can't meet at the police station. It ain't safe. Well, man, you know, we ain't talking about you. We're talking about us. You know, not us, the organization. But, you know, it got weird. And then there was Ronald DeFries. You should read his book if you can get it, the Glass House Tapes, Glass House 1, Glass House 2. He wrote 2 books. And he was supposed to be a brother that got back from the Nam who had been a medic. So injuries.
Is that Tackwood? Is that Tackwood? What's his name?
No, not DeFries. Tackwood, Louis Tackwood. DeFries was with the Che Lumumba thing.
Yeah.
Not
you know, y'all went to high school, right? Y'all go to high school together?
Yeah, I went to high school with Ronald DeFries.
They kidnapped Patty Hearst.
Tackwood. Yeah, Tackwood. I talked to you about that, but I'm just
that book is hard to find. But I found it, but on Amazon it's like $1,000 or something like that. It's like ridiculous. Like they track the information.
I've got one in my safe.
I've got worth a lot of money.
I got a new copy in my safe, and I've read both of them several times before. But Louis Tackwood, not DeFries, that was Cinque.
The Patty Hearst thing,
Patty Hearst thing,
SLA.
With, by the way, another crook attorney general of California, A.L.L Younger, who, if you've been reading Tackwood's book, you see how he puts A.L. Younger in there and some of the stuff they did, including burglarizing Angela Davis's place, stealing the guns and planting them in that van and wiring up that 15-year-old to go bust off in that courthouse. But anyway, we thought Tackwood was a former medic in the Nam. So he was going around treating people for the injuries received. And he was there for a lot of stuff. But I remember when I got in law school, I did this field project, which is watching this murder trial going on. So I'm sitting there and they bring in, who the hell did they bring in? Louis Tackwood. I said, oh shit. You know, damn. Started feeling real nervous.
Oh, man.
And I said, he was a snitch. Damn. But it turned out, he said, we would like to please state your name for the record. Louis Tackwood, what is your rank? I said, rank? I said, Lieutenant, Los Angeles Police Department, SIS unit. I said, I just know was a cop. He wasn't just a line cop. He
like
was
Donnie Brasco,
a lieutenant. But he didn't tell on everybody. He didn't tell
okay,
everything he knew.
okay.
I said, man, damn. And I knew the dude, you know, I don't know.
Is he still around? Is he still alive? Or
I
you don't
have
know?
no idea. I
Witness
bet you
protection.
he could tell you some stories because you remember
Mhm.
he was talking about Captain Franco, how he set Franco up where they put him in the jail cell, and some gangsters were in there that were doing drug trade stuff, and he said, yeah, that no good so-and-so. He squealed on me. Who is that? Franco, you mean Diggs? Yeah, that was him. And they had just put Tackwood in that cell. That's in Glass House 2, I think.
Okay.
But anyway, it was insidious what they were doing. They just wiped that off the face. And I think one of the problems is that people were too naive at a point where there actually was an opportunity to do something with it. I wish I had the sophistication then that I do now, and I try to teach it to people, but they don't want to listen, and everybody's talking about unity, unity. Well, yeah, if you're not unifying with the very devil, and you've got people now that are being pushed by mainstream media. And I'll say this, the biggest bastion of racism in the United States of America is in the communications and entertainment media fields. The worst racist I've ever encountered in my life are not here in the South, not Alabama, not Mississippi. They're in Hollywood.
Yeah, I've been. Yeah, it's
And
interesting out there.
the mainstream media is part of that thing out there. It's on the far left, and what they're trying to do is emasculate the country, starting with black folk first.
Right.
And
Oh, confirmation. Judge, are you still in the house, Judge? See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what they do. This is not a technical difficulty because it just so happened to be a technical difficulty. This is actually what they do. You see what he's talking about. You see how he's no longer on the screen. This is what we deal with, and it's going to get worse if we get certain people in certain positions of so-called power. They're going to keep on, like, you know, I got videos I did with Judge and Dr. Randy Short that been removed. Now, okay, Judge, you there? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. See, they did that on purpose, right? They be playing, man. Yes, sir. But the media is the most unchecked power. It's more dangerous than the executive branch or legislative because it's an unchecked power.
Can
It's
you
an
hear
unchecked
me?
power. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
I'm going to duck out and come right back in.
Okay. Yes, sir. But I know President Nixon, after he retired, he talked about the dangers of the media, how it has unchecked power, like even with the executive branch, legislative, judicial, there are checks and balances. But with the media, they can run with anything. Like Brother Malcolm X would say, the media is the most powerful entity on the planet because it influences the minds of the masses. They'll make your friend your enemy and your enemy your friend, or they'll project that. So that narrative piece is very important because you remember when J.D. Vance, the vice presidential nominee for the Republican ticket, he was on CNN with Dana Bash. And they were talking about the immigrant dog, cat, geese, duck story. And Dana was trying to imply that they made that up. And but J.D. Vance to me was saying that he's the senator from Ohio. And they were talking about the Springfield, Ohio situation with the immigrants. And he said, we had to create a story. He didn't say they lied. See, that's the thing. People don't know how to discern. He said we had to create the story because we tried to get traction about what was going on in that community with the immigration, with the immigrants, with the illegals. But we had to create a story to get the media's attention so they could start digging more deeper into the issue. And the media is propaganda, it's Operation Mockingbird. A lot of people should know CIA has been involved heavily in the media and controlling narratives. There's a lot of money dumped into Hollywood to tell certain movies, narratives, and stuff like that. Even with your so-called legacy media, you have a situation where, for example, I even remember 60 Minutes some years ago where they talked about how some of their top media consultants at 60 Minutes were CIA connection. Was CIA connected, excuse me, Central Intelligence Agency connected. Or you think about the movie scripts that get approved that's very pro US, whatever. You gotta be very careful how you portray the US and a lot of popular media and whatnot. But see, we get Judge. Judge, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you again.
All right, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
Okay.
I'm trying to tell people they do this by design. They want to control and tell a certain narrative, and you pushing back on the narrative, and you having very much a great effect and influence. And I just want to talk about that influence, especially as it relates to the Diddy situation. I'm sure if they were smart, his legal team should hire you directly and deal with you in terms of how to
Well,
do this Diddy situation. Because you talked about it, but my thing, I'm gonna ask you this, Judge. You think I'm crazy? Judge, I remember Diddy took on one of the most powerful liquor companies on the planet in court and won. Basically, they settled, they paid him off, but it's like it was a Pyrrhic victory because now look what's going on now with him, with the feds and stuff. And I like the fact that you and Dana focus not on the sensationalism with the baby oil, but the substance or lack of substance of the case he's being charged with. Do you think it's a conspiracy with the people, the liquor
yeah, it
company?
is. It's
Okay.
straight up and down. And this is why I say this election is pivotal. 4 more
Mm-hmm.
years of this nonsense, and you won't recognize the country. This
Mm-hmm.
idiot witch queen, this hyena queen, has already been out talking, and the media isn't pushing it. She is actually giving interviews. She says, well, I promise I don't care whether you have your guns legally or not. We're going to come in and take a look where you live.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes on, and it's like, what happened to the Fourth Amendment? This is not just a rank politician. This is somebody that used to be the chief prosecutor in a major American city who ought to know good and damn well what it is about search and seizure. You just can't walk in, but she's promising, don't worry, I promise we're going to come in and see what you're doing. Like, what in the world are you talking about? And see, I look at that and I say that is something that is very important. We have to suppress that because if we do not, it looks very much like Nazi Germany in 1934. And people today say, how did these Germans let Hitler get, the Nazis get? Well, take a look
Yeah.
around. You're looking at it right now. And people are so
Mm-hmm.
on being anti-Trump that they're sitting and letting the very devil come in play. So aside from Tampon Tim, it's what we're trying to do right now is be careful about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what you think it is. You've been propagandized, so you think differently. If I can give a brief
Yeah,
explanation.
go ahead.
You and I know what germs are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got a polished tile floor leading from my front door inside my house. Looks
Mm-hmm.
shiny, looks clean. My
Right.
niece just came over and cleaned it, waxed it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everybody's walking with their feet outside, stepping in old dry dog shit and stuff, and people spit on the sidewalks and stuff. If you drop a food item down there, you say, oh, no, because you know what germs are. If it was 300 years ago, as slick and clean as that is, you just pick it up and eat it because you don't know anything about germs.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, once you know these things, you get a different perspective. But if you don't know these things, you act just like you're going to eat it off the floor because you don't know any better. So we do the equivalent of eating off of what looks to be a clean floor when it comes to our politics and when it comes to our socializing and when it comes to our economics. because we don't seem to know any better, and we don't want to listen to anybody say, hey, take a look under a microscope. I don't need to do that. You really need to look at what's down on that floor. If you saw it, you wouldn't pick something up off of it. Now I don't want to look at it. You don't know what you're talking about. See, they don't want to hear it. So when you tell them that there are bugs and germs and little bitty nasty things down there that'll get them sick as hell, they don't want to hear it.
Yes,
So when
sir.
you say, I'm the doctor, I'm coming in, I know what's down there. Oh, no. See, the sister girl, you just mad because you talking about a black woman. No, the dumb hoe bitch. Hell, she trying to sit there and she got pimped out. Now she trying to turn your ass into a trick. And who's pimping her and who gets the money when you turn the trick? See, people don't get that. And they're so happy. And this is the other thing. When you look at them, you say, you know what? This person doesn't realize how low their self-esteem is. So they're so low down in the self-esteem that they will create something that they think is positive that they can identify with. A whole lot of black folk identify with this fake Negro Kamala Harris because they want something positive to identify with. We just talked about there's no Stokely Carmichael, no H. Brown, there's no Malcolm X, there's no King. You know, there's not all of these brothers that are out there with Black Student Alliance, Panther Party, the various street organizations that were doing something positive. So they're looking for something. That's like, remember about 30 years ago, the starter jackets, everybody wore Oakland Raiders jacket. Like,
Yes,
who are the
sir.
Oakland Raiders? I think they're a football team. What city are they in? I don't know. Hell, fool. It says Oakland. Where is Oakland? I don't know. Somewhere in the Midwest. No, it's on the West Coast, fool. You know. Well, who's the quarterback? I don't know. Well, why are you wearing the tag? With everybody wearing one. So they want a sense of identity. And it's a little trick that I studied in propaganda is get something negative and cause your target to identify with it in what they think is a positive fashion. So subconsciously they ignore the negatives, but subconsciously they absorb the negatives. It's a very insidious thing, and that's one of the things we're doing.
Well, Joe, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So this whole thing about the black thing, you're looking at what has been termed lawfare, Lawfare. It's a new term. It's fairly good one. It's expressive. It's called abuse of process, where you know you are not going to get a conviction that'll stick all the way through the appellate process. But if you have complicit trial judges, complicit attorney generals, and they're all operating for a common cause, you can get away with slapping somebody with a mess that ties them up. And for the most part, most of the people, 90%, can't really afford what it takes to say screw you and stick it out all the way through. Or you do what they Diddy, which I think is the most atrocious thing. For a long time, since March, he and his lawyer had been cooperating with the feds. He surrendered his passport in March. He came back from an island that did not have an extradition agreement with the United States. He moved, got himself a place in New York so he could be there, and he'd set up a $50 million 5-way secured bond situation, which is totally adequate. I mean, we're not exactly talking about murder. We're talking about Mann Act stuff. And by the way, NBC came up with Mann Act after I had talked about it for a week.
Of course.
Dana. Nobody had mentioned it. And by the way, it doesn't say Mann Act in the 14-page indictment for 3 counts, which usually take about 2 or 3 pages. 2,000 bottles of oil and lubricant. What the hell does that have to do with anything? See, that was propaganda addressed to the public, because in the federal system, all you have to do is put the defendant on notice of what he's being tried for. get his plea, and that's it. You don't have to tell him anything. You don't have to let him see anything other than any statements that he signed or a list of any items that you seized from him during a search warrant. And that's about it. When a witness testifies at trial, you get 15 minutes, 30 minutes to look over the transcript of the witness's testimony in front of a grand jury, and it's trial by ambush. So they put 14 pages of fine print nonsense out there trying to influence the public. They've got this beating thing, and okay, that was bad, but what you're talking about is Diddy was playing the role of a pimp. He was pandering, and he was putting on what some pimps used to do back when. They put on these sex parties, these orgies for the high and mighty who didn't get their hands dirty. And you would have in some mansion, you would have a freak scene going on there over in the corner of this room, and something freak at the end of the hallway. And the guest would be invited to watch, jack off, or participate or get involved. And that's some old time stuff that's been going on for years. So in this case, they alleged that it had been going on for approximately 15 years. So you might envision that a lot of people had gone to those parties. Now, what I think Diddy was doing, Puff Daddy, was he was getting himself insurance because Hollywood tries to blackmail everybody. It is endemic. The entertainment industry is endemic about blackmailing people. So I know what you have been doing. I know where the closets are that with your skeletons in. So I've got some on you too. So we all keep our mouths shut. But the problem is I have a sneaking suspicion since Kamala's husband, Mr. Imhoff, was a big time Hollywood lawyer, and she always liked to get her freak on anyway, that over the 15-year period, somebody had been in attendance at some of these freak parties out in California when they were out in California hanging around with basketball players, Montel and Willie and a host of others. And I have a sneaking suspicion that it might be embarrassing. You know, his bodyguard's been releasing stuff like, look, this is just a birthday party, but a lot of these people you see in this were at some of these parties. And you're looking at the Kardashians, you're looking at Hillary Clinton, you're looking at the Obamas and some of the other folk. And it's sort of, well, you know, in Chicago, Obama's known as Bathhouse Barry, and, you know, Hillary has a long reputation for freak. And, you know, we knew who was on the airline list or traveling list to Epstein's Island, and we've looked at that and we've seen who was at the island, and we have a general idea of what was going on the island. Now we've got somebody that had self-protection videos over 15 years of what was going on, and basically they charge him with the Mann Act. So the Mann Act is interesting. I'm very with it. I used to represent a whole lot of pimps and hoes 40 years ago in the Memphis area, and where this fictional P-Valley occurs down in Mississippi, a lot of the dancers and hoes I used to represent work down there in their Memphis, or they were in Arkansas over here, and when they went back and forth across the line every now and then, they would pop them and bust them for Mann Act stuff. I even had one situation, I can't mention the guy's name, but what was going on, he wasn't a drug dealer, but he was a very close associate of a certain drug dealer that the feds were interested in. So he ran into a lady friend that he used to go to high school with over in West Memphis. And what they did is they left her car parked over in West Memphis, and they drove back over to Memphis in his car. And they went to motel, hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and the feds had him under.
Ooh, the feds is watching and they being haters. Why they hating? Players, why y'all hating? Judge breaking it down. Y'all see this stuff is real. It's interesting how we have these blackouts when the truth out, when the judge about to get into the nitty gritty and slice it up and dive deep into the pie. This was happening. This is why it's so important to support grassroots media. Judge, are you there? I can see you, Judge. Can you hear me?
I can hear you,
Yes,
but
sir.
I got to come back up, bring you back up so I can see you. Okay.
Okay, all right, go ahead, do your thing. And that's why it's important. You see, I mean, like we all be other organizations, other outlets has been under attack for speaking truth. They want to claim that we're not effective, that we're dusties and stuff like that. But why are they so obsessed with us? I really want to know. Why are they obsessed with us? I need to know. No. But know that the marathon continues. But the things about what Judge is talking about, you're not going to hear this on the lamestream legacy so-called media, which is really mockingbirds and not real truth tellers. You know, they suppress truth by any means necessary. So it's very important that in a time of great deceit and deception that people amplify their voices, maximize their voices, fight to be heard, fight like Donald J. Trump told us when they try to take him out the planet. And what people got to understand, if Kamala is winning, how come they're trying so hard to delete Trump? If Kamala is actually winning, what's the threat? What's the harm in allowing them to compete all the way up to November 5th? And I wouldn't be surprised because, like Donald Trump, the security threat is very, very high right now. I heard that they had to in a rally down at the U.S. Mexico border recently. I don't know the details, but they had to end it because his life is on the line. If a man is willing to put his life on the line for what he believes in, regardless if I believe in his perspective, I gotta respect that man or woman. So, Judge, I think he's coming back to the dais. Judge, are you there?
Yeah,
We
I'm
can see
here.
you. All right,
Okay.
excellent. They said they always come when you about to that's dive into the cake, about to cut it up. Here they come with the interference.
Yeah.
Flag on the play, flag on the play. Judge, go ahead.
Yeah. Here. What I was saying is the feds had this brother under surveillance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they were trying to get him to be a witness against somebody he knew pretty well. And he was refusing. So they kept following him around. We found out later. And he was over in West Memphis and he ran into a woman he went to high school with. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to hook up because it was unfinished business and they left their car over in West Memphis. They rode with him back to Memphis and they found a hotel motel. They were going to get it on. So they were just about to get into it and they were in bed and the feds kicked the door open and they charged him with the Mann Act, which basically says transporting a female across state lines for illicit purposes. You didn't have to pay for it. You didn't have to beat anybody. It was an old effort to hold down and maintain morality. And the target was Jack Johnson, the first black world heavyweight boxing champion. And they were after him because he had a white wife, and his white wife had some pretty, by that day's standards, friend girls, and they used to travel around, and they didn't like this big black buck with all these white women hanging around. So they created the FBI to go find out about it, and they passed the Mann Act. And it's interesting because the legislative history, there's an interesting dialogue. One of the senators is saying, well, what the hell's going on? What about if a guy takes his mistress over there across lines? Oh, well, nobody's going to prosecute that. We know how that happens. It's just to get that big buck Negro.
Yes, sir.
And he got busted because he was going with his wife to Europe, and they had to cross a certain southern state that did not recognize interracial marriage. So the FBI, since they weren't armed, were accompanied by local police, and they rushed the train and busted them after they'd spent 15 minutes in that state, and they made a stop. So they prosecuted him. He was convicted. He escaped and was living in France. And his mama wanted him to come back. The same situation with young Dolph. So he tried to sneak back in to visit her. She just wanted to see her baby boy. And of course, they busted him. He did his time. And when he got out, he wound up getting supposedly killed in a car wreck in 1946.
Mm.
But, you know, you don't have to beat anybody. You don't have to pay anybody. You don't have to hire anybody. It's simply the transport. So, brothers, beware of the fact that if they have a target on your back, let's say you got a friend girl lives in Chicago and you haven't seen her in a while, she wants to come pay you a visit and you buy her a plane ticket, they can bust you for the Mann Act if they can get some inference that you're trying to get it on. So it's a law that needs to be repealed. It's 111 years old, I think. And it stinks to high heavens because it had a wrong purpose. It serves the feds with convenience every now and then. Now, that thing you saw him do to that woman in the elevator, well, there's supposed to be a backstory, no excuse, but that's just part of the pimp game. And when people say, man, this is about pimping, man, you know, like, hey, that's part of it. Warm some head, and that's how pimps work. So I don't know whether the lady was being whatever he says, that she took his clothes and ran off and he got angry and there was an
Well, you
affair
know,
having with him and the security and all of the rest of
well,
it.
you know what, Judge? Well, I say out when you saying all this, I'm thinking about what happened to Sam Cooke or whatever they say happened to him. Like allegedly, the prostitute he brought to that hotel and watched took his clothes and wallet and he ran out. When he was ended up dead in the hotel manager's room office with just his shirt. I mean, with just his suit jacket on, just basically naked. And my thing, if Sam Cooke got caught like that today, he would have been like considered a predator. They would have canceled Sam Cooke if he
Yeah,
died the way, because you know the coroner inquest found him guilty. There was justifiable homicide. This is back in 64, 65.
yeah. Well, see, when I started practicing around here about 8 years after that, and all up through until I didn't have time for it anymore in the pimp game, the whole game seemed to change to something else. Switchboard, they called it. In other words, call girl stuff. And something more refined. That was standard. I was always dealing with pimps who were warming one of their hoes' heads, and the hoes wouldn't prosecute because they thought something was wrong with them and they deserved punishment, which is part of the pimp game. Pimps can't turn a woman into a hoe,
Right.
but
Yeah.
a preacher can, because the preacher easily, and it's a real weird thing. Grandma gets stood up next to the pulpit when they have a bake sale, and she gets lauded for selling one slice more cake than anybody else did. And the preacher tells them they're no good, low down sinners, and they're going to hell, etc., except through him. And they have a very low concept of self. The self-esteem is flattened out to zero. And the same thing with the hoe. She's been raised in this kind of environment. Her grandmama, mama, and aunts have been telling her she too pretty, she gonna be a slut, and all these men's gonna be chasing you, blah, 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 and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you ask the prostitute or the dancer, she'd tell you that all these men's trying to get in her panties, which all they have to do is pay the fee and they're going to get in there anyway, but she doesn't look like it. But my pimp, he loves me because he sees me as I am. He calls her no good, filthy, ugly, stupid. And the only one that loves her is him. So that's part of this human thing of wanting to be accepted as you perceive yourself to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when he beats her, she thinks she's evil and vile and wicked and needs punishment. And how can she give the pimp the money that she earns? Well, that's the same thing. She's used to money being begged for or taken because the preacher gets up and tells mama, grandmama, and all the aunts and friend girls 10 times every Sunday service, 4 times during choir practice and Bible study, another 2 days of the week, because they're trying to keep from going to hell for doing wrong. And he begs them for money, and he wants every dime they can't afford to give him. And the preacher's screwing everybody up in the church, so boy and girl, so it's just a game. So it's an easy transition to a pimp that's working the same game the preacher is. Not all preachers, but we have too many pulpit pimps. And speaking of which, what about T.D. Jakes getting caught calling his wife a slut and a hoe? You know, so it's
so T.D.
like,
Jakes,
hey,
he was one of Diddy close friends.
yeah,
Was he a spiritual advisor? Spiritual advisor.
There you go.
But
So,
also, he used to hang around Eddie Long. Bishop Eddie Long was close to
yeah,
Jakes. You know, Bishop, they got him. He got that package at the end and sent him on home. But T.D. Jakes was missing from the last days of Bishop Eddie Long, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Birds of a feather, you know.
Months ago, I said, are they going after Diddy to get him for doing wrong? Or are they trying to protect some other folk for doing wrong? And I think it's a bit of all of the above. And I noticed something else that I found very peculiar.
Mm-hmm.
They raided the mansion he had on the West Coast, but
Right.
on the East Coast down in Florida, they only raided one of the mansions that he had on the property in question. He had 2 of them on the same property. They only raided one of them. So I also said, why did they bring in the Homeland Security? I said, it's wrong because the FBI got started for this, for the Mann Act stuff. That's what they're on, but they bring Homeland Security. You know what for? They're trying to hold him incommunicado so he can't communicate what's necessary to say, okay, they double crossed me, bust them, start releasing the other copies of what we do have. So when he's incommunicado, they can do that. If Homeland Security is involved, they'll claim he's involved in international sex trafficking, which brings in supposedly terrorists. But then again, how are you going to talk that with a straight face when your Justice Department that this clown up in New York works for, that's under the Attorney General of the United States, that's a member of the president's cabinet and works for him, you got the southern border wide open, so anybody in the world who wants to come into the United States, this needs to go through Mexico. And they can come into the United States, carry up military-grade explosives, whatever they want to carry in. Anthrax, they can carry in syphilis, HIV, all kinds of stuff. You can get sexual predators. You don't care because the border's wide open. And the illegals are raping American women and children, and drugs are being sold, and cartels of not even infiltrated, just walk right in.
Right.
And, you know, it seems kind of strange, doesn't it, that you're worried about the international aspect of sex trade when you got the border wide open to sex traders who can come in, and they're doing it while they're here. So, you know.
Judge, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And by the way, you know what that's about?
What is it about? Tell us.
Under American law, as it is, if a person is granted asylum,
Mm-hmm.
there's an interesting thing. After 5 years, they automatically become an American citizen. They don't have to go through the classes or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And ordinarily, see, the requirement is that you have to go through an American embassy where they vet you there and figure out, is this really somebody who needs to be granted asylum? But now, the president under the U.S. Constitution has absolute authority to pardon or commute any sentence.
Yes.
So the next president, if it's Harris, all she has to do is issue a blanket pardon for all of the illegals who seem to be shipped into battleground states. All right. So she pardons them. Now they're no longer criminals. She also pardons everybody that is giving them sanctuary, which under federal law is harboring a fugitive, because somebody who's crashed the border is per se a federal fugitive. Now, the next thing that's interesting is this. As the chief diplomat of the United States of America under the U.S. Constitution,
Mm-hmm.
she can grant the diplomatic immunity status. She can declare them to be, guess what, entitled to asylum. And she can make the date retroactive, since it's impossible to tell when anyone came over, to the presumptive date, which is about 3 years ago, which means she gets in if she declares the date from which the asylum is effective. For all of the unknown dates, she can set it back 3 years. That means that since they're pardoned, they can now vote 2 years into her term, which is just in time for the midterm elections next go around, which means, of course, they'll be grateful and they will stuff, since there are 50 billion of them, stuff the halls of
This is oh my God, this
House
is so
and
horrible.
Senate with Democrats, and they'll control it. And meanwhile, what are they saying? Freedom of speech is not absolute. Misinformation is so dangerous, it must be controlled. We're going to set up a Bureau of Misinformation. Both Waltz and Harris and AOC have been talking that poison. And of course, guns are so dangerous. She's already issued a thing talking about technology, and trying to sneak in another little step on gun control. Biden just signed an order yesterday. And Harris is talking about she's going to, of course, have people come into your homes to see if you have guns. How are you going to get probable cause for that? I don't know, but they're just going to come in. So there's the Fourth Amendment, to be free in your person and property from inappropriate searches and seizures. Second Amendment would go out. Then they're talking about getting rid of the Fifth Amendment, and they're talking about, we have to open this up where we allow anybody to come in and forget why we have Homeland Security in the first place. I think it's called 911, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And they had to go through months worth of preparatory stuff, and they hijacked 4 airplanes, and went through all of that. Why do you have to do that when you see person after person? They're military age Chinese males walking across with heavy backpacks that can carry enough military grade explosives to bring down a skyscraper anywhere in the country, or start a huge conflagration at an oil refinery, or carrying their equivalent of Stinger missiles. Nobody's checking them. And get on a government bus and get taken to your target. They've been here 3 years, and China's talking about in 2027 they have to be ready to take Taiwan by force if necessary, but they're going to get it. So
Mm.
what in the devil's supposed to happen? Also, most of these cranes are lifts that deal with the containers on container ships,
Yeah.
and then 90% of them were made in China. And now
Mm.
the one thing not to talk about in the media is they found some interesting, what appear to be communication devices that are inextricably installed in these cranes, these gantries, and they don't know what they're for, except they're some kind of communications devices, but they can't get them out without disabling the device, or rather the gantries. So
Mm-hmm.
what is this? You've allowed the Chinese to get controlling interest in a lot of the American port systems in terms of the infrastructure. And we gave away all of our ammunition. The Pentagon has been writing papers saying, hey, look, we only have 4 to 5 days worth of heavy ammunition if we have to get it on with the Chinese. This isn't third world, and you've been giving that stuff away to Ukraine and Israel. So we're down to maybe 3 days worth of ammo that we need. And you didn't let us get the amphibious assault ships we've been begging for years. So there's very limited ability to transport Marines and Army units in the South. Well, not South, but the Northeast Pacific up there in
Mm-hmm.
South China Sea Bay.
Yes, sir.
And you've got a big live problem. What are you going to do if they decide to deal with it? We don't have but 120 F-22 fighters, and only about 60 of them are fully operational. So you have the Chinese have about 1,500 Generation 5 stealth fighters themselves. We have 65, 70 that are operable. So how are you going to take this on to get it over there anyway? And unless we go all out nuclear, which everybody respects, we are not going to win a conventional slugfest with somebody like China. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're going to go nuclear. Actually, that would be a fool move. But
Right.
remember World War II, they did not use gas, though they first used gas in World War I. We
Mm-hmm.
used nukes in World War II, but nobody's used them anywhere since. So maybe some things are just so bad humans don't want to use them on each other, like they didn't want to use gas in World War II. But we can't take China on in a conventional war over there and prevail.
I
So
mean, but Judge, they already infiltrated us in Walmart. They buying all this real estate over here. I believe in military bases. We already been compromised. You know what I'm saying? It's over. Because Trump, I think it's interesting that people are so like low vibrational, misinformed, or they ahistorical. Because Kamala said in the debate that the U.S. military leaders don't respect Trump. The reason why they don't respect him because he's not a warmonger. Like all the people like Dick Cheney's and John Bolton's, they warmongers, they war hawks, they war profiteers. Trump is a businessman who believes in dealing in peace and prosperity. He want to make a deal with China and Russia and North Korea. We don't want to bum him out the map. And he's a threat to the deep state. He's a threat to the republic for which they think they stand. But also with the, I was thinking about what you were saying about the Mann Act and who's being charged or has been charged, and the reason why they created it. I'm saying, where's the prominent white man that's been charged or ever been charged with the Mann Act? Even Lucky Luciano, who was caught down in Hot Springs, Arkansas on the run, he was charged with compulsory prostitution, 62 counts he was convicted of, but there's no mention of him being charged with a Mann Act. And it was a black woman, Eunice Carter, who was one of the first, she probably was the first black female assistant DA in New York City for Thomas Dewey. She gave him the blueprint to take down one of the most powerful mob bosses in this country history. But they also are weaponizing black people again to take down people like Trump, to take down the NYC mayor Eric Adams, to take down even rappers down in Atlanta. So what is it about? What's going on here, Judge? Why can't we just abolish the Mann Act? Because it's racial profiling at the highest level.
I think it should be abolished. It's 111 years old. It deals with an effort to supposedly to justify it is to control morality, but
Right.
basically it was to do something about what they thought was going to occur based on the influence of Jack Johnson. By the
Mm-hmm.
way, James Earl Jones played Jack Johnson in a
Oh yeah.
very good movie. If
Great
you ever
White
get
Hope.
to see it, you should look at it.
It was called Great White Hope, right? Was it called
Yeah,
Great White Hope? Okay, yeah, it was a
yeah,
good movie.
you should
Yeah.
look at it. And it kind of breaks down what the Mann Act was about with what they were trying to do to get him and the intrigue to set it up. That's how J. Edgar Hoover got his start. They
Mm-hmm.
put him in the brothels in New York, and he was supposed to be a third floor fancy boy, a fair skinned Negro at the time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
fancy. And he befriended a lot of the hoes up in these brothels. And he got the blackmail information on a lot of white politicians. Now, when they did it again, this is in New York. See, New York is closely proximate to Washington D.C. and Philadelphia. You can get on a train, could
Right.
back
Right.
conveniently than now. So it was designed to get black folk, but also use the unique circumstances of New York to get blackmail on other politicians that could be controlled. You realize at the time that the Democrats were in party with Woodrow Wilson, and they were trying to overcome the Republican dominance in national politics at that time. So they were getting blackmail information on Republican officials in New York.
Right.
And J. Edgar Hoover used that to blackmail people in power and authority. So he wound up being appointed head of the FBI, and everybody conveniently forgot the fact that he was a part breed Negro. And by the
Mm-hmm.
way, at that point, the FBI couldn't carry guns, so Hoover used some more blackmail information so that the FBI could be armed. Now, their main task, aside from catching Negroes who might be going across state lines with white women,
Mm.
became a delegation to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the task of monitoring the legal production of alcohol. This is right after Prohibition got started. So the
Mm-hmm.
FBI in its expansion is inextricably caught up with alcohol. An interesting side story is the qualifications for being an FBI agent were two: either be a certified public accountant. What is with these damn balloons? Every damn
Mm-hmm.
thing I've been on for the last 2 months has had these damn balloons released. I know you aren't doing it. Dana doesn't do it. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
yeah, it's interesting. Well, Judge, you already know they watching you. You are
Yeah,
under surveillance. You be one of the first people that put in them concentration camps or whatever
no,
they're gonna
can't
do.
put me in a concentration camp because I ain't going quiet. I've had a
I
long,
believe you too, but they
I've had
coming.
a long, exciting life, and I'll go to Valhalla. Shit.
But Judge, I gotta ask you this. I think it's very important. I think Eric Adams can use your help. Cause I think it's weird that last year, September 23rd, 2023, that the mayor of New York gave the key to the city to Diddy on September 23rd of 2023. And look at where we at September 27th, 2023. They both are facing federal charges. And these are black men. I'm just worried about everything has been weaponized against black men. Like even the FBI, I believe, should be defunded or abolished because it was formed to get Jack Johnson. They hired the first black FBI agents to neutralize Marcus Garvey. They helped COINTELPRO to break up our movement, and the gun that killed Dr. King came from the FBI. So what good is it, the FBI, to black people, particularly
I don't,
black men?
I don't know, but the Black Caucus seems to be in love with them.
Man, I can't trust the FBI, man. I just don't. Even when Ruby Ridge, Ruby Bridge or Ruby Ridge and Waco. I remember when Waco happened, that was suspect because the government set the house on fire or whatever.
Well,
I mean, you had the footage.
I'll tell you something else too. There is my information is that there is a minor war going on inside the FBI from the straight agents versus the San Francisco Rainbow crowd that is thoroughly infiltrated the organization.
Mm.
So
They always been there though, cause J. Edgar Hoover, that's they found their father,
yeah,
right?
I know that. Hoover and Colson, his boyfriend, the
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of poisonous what's been going on, but why in the world, with the people you are causing to hate the country in the Middle East, particularly in this Gaza situation, why in the world, with all of the people who are pissed off that we are pushing what we are pushing, this rainbow cult over in Ukraine and around the world, why in the world, with the Russians getting angry about the whole thing, why in the world that a lot of people around the planet are upset with us pushing these neo-Nazis in Ukraine, why in the world do you have a wide open border where anybody can walk in? It doesn't make any damn sense at all. None at all. I mean, even if you were saying, oh, we're going to be warm hearted and we're going to save our souls. We've done the Negro so bad, so we need to redeem ourselves so Jesus will take us home to heaven. We're going to go in and have all of these people vet all of these applicants, anybody who wants, who is of good citizenship and not possessed of some horrible, incurable disease. We will expedite them becoming citizens. You just don't open the damn border up when you have all of these enemies.
Well, what's the point of the Patriot Act, though? I thought we gave up our freedoms to be secure. You're not having a secure border. This 20 plus years with the Patriot Act. What's the point of the Patriot Act then? If we're not going to secure the border?
Here's what the Patriot Act did. It undid what had been put in place in reaction to the King assassination. When they had all of the hearings in the 70s, it developed that J. Edgar Hoover and his FBI were violating American law very seriously, but the specific things they were doing outside of the murders and stuff like that that have been criminal for a long time, the late 70s, 76 mostly, saw Congress pass a series of laws that made what Hoover and his FBI were doing illegal. Specifically illegal. What you got with the Patriot Act is that got changed back to the way Hoover was doing it, and what Hoover was doing was made legal. The Patriot Act is really kind of poisonous, but Homeland Security was supposed to be to defend the country against, restore or protect or coordinate efforts where the country suffered disasters, either natural or man-made. 9/11 was considered a man-made disaster with what happened in New York. Right. You're supposed to deal with foreign terrorist infiltration. You're supposed to deal with foreign trafficking back and forth in criminal enterprise. Now you have a situation which is kind of weird. Like, I lived in a place, Ojai, California, and we had some heavy rain, so all of the roadways into Ojai collapsed. So for about 2 weeks, you couldn't get in and out of where I lived at all. They had to send a helicopter to get me for doing the show. And it was interesting, but Homeland Security handled that. So where do we get from Homeland Security doing that to pimping and procuring for sex orgies in 2024? But where do we get from that to wide open border. Come on in. We're not going to stop you. We're not going to check you. It's an open border. Okay. Well, even in Europe, they'll give you a cursory check to see if you're carrying weapons or explosives. You know what the devil.
Yes, sir. Well, this is the thing, though. Like, I'm getting
Yeah,
back to that.
but they are not even walking through a metal detector. Now, you are a born and American citizen. You're over 40, been here your
Yeah.
whole life.
Yes,
You
sir.
have an honest background. And when you get on the damn plane to come back to America, you run through a metal detector. When
Right.
you
Yes, sir.
get back to the United States, you have to go through customs. But these idiots have just got anybody can come in, walk in, carry in whatever the hell you want, and nobody checks you.
But you
Last
got
time I got off an international plane, your passport, please. I'm showing my passport. I've been here a long time. Ain't lived nowhere else. And these characters can just walk in without showing passport ID, a damn thing.
Well, they can have zero credit history and own a home within 2 years of being here
Yeah.
with no credit history.
Yeah. And, oh, and the next scandal, I didn't even touch on it. You know, now have you heard about how effective Kamala has been as borders are? Hey, what?
And we got gangs taking over cities and apartment complexes.
Yeah.
But they're
Now,
not
wait a
talking
minute.
about it.
The other one, that was one thing she got in a specific assignment to take care of. President can delegate that to his cabinet. She failed miserably. Now, what else did she get designated as being in charge of? Biden actually said when he announced it, he said, if she'll accept it, I'm putting my vice president, Kamala Harris, in charge of this project. And she said, I accept. And what was that? $42 billion to set up internet connections for rural America. Not one damn connection has been set up. The one organization that was doing something was associated with Elon Musk. And what they were doing cost about $1,300 per home on average to set up the whole system. This was before they set this $42 billion setup, but they still had a small contract. They took the contract and to fill the balance of what X had, that's Musk thing, they were paying out $106,000 a house to put something in instead of $1,300. And now it develops that the $42 billion has completely disappeared. Nobody can account for it. And they made one bad mistake. Marjorie Taylor Greene's district would have been a huge beneficiary. And as she was saying this week, ain't nobody in my district got nothing. Where'd the money go? What happened to it?
It's like, remember, like, about Donald Rumsfeld when he was running the Pentagon, how they $8 billion went missing over in Iraq or something. You remember that? Like, it was like $8 billion or something went missing and never been found or accounted for. And like that, it's like they running these Ponzi schemes. The government runs Ponzi schemes, but they want to punish the small players. But the big fish get to swim as long as they want to in the biggest of oceans without any problems. Like even with Eric Adams, I believe his problem began when he started pushing back against being a sanctuary city and started saying we can't do this no more. And he was a good Democrat on the plantation. Yes, boss, we sick, boss. And then I'll say he said, I don't think we should go this way. You undermining the citizens and the infrastructure. You get these weird charges. I saw that press conference. Like, you know, you throwing the book at him for upgrades on a plane and hotel and luxury meals. He's stealing millions of dollars the way. How is this a federal? Everybody does it, right? Judge, help me understand. I'm trying to help us understand.
When you have major cities around the world, they exchange mayors. So rather than New York picking up the tab, you're going over to Turkey. Turkey's not going to look at you if you come in coach class, like, who the hell are you? We don't need to pay attention. Right. You lost face. So you ride first class. And if the whole host wants to upgrade your ticket, so damn what? They do it all the time. Now, I'm not saying that there might not have been money laundering or kickbacks or stuff like that. I don't know. But the point is come on now, talking about something stupid. From my perspective, that U.S. attorney is dumb as fuck. You know what he did? He set out all of these details. There are only 4 counts, but it's 53 pages.
Man, what is that, man?
Wait a minute. But the problem is this. If you allege it or you claim you can prove it in your opening statement, if you're in front of a jury and you don't prove each and everything you claim you can prove, you lose the case. Now, see, this is what's so stupid, but also what is so insidious. That indictment is not what it's supposed to be, because the indictment is only required to inform the defendant of what he's being charged with and when it supposedly occurred. Now, your typical indictment, let's take Diddy's case. It's 3 counts that goes on for 14 pages. Talks about him masturbating, which is irrelevant. It talks about bottles of oil or containers of lubricant, which is irrelevant. That's for.
Okay, we got back, Judge. Hello, Judge. Can you hear us? Can you hear? Yeah. Judge is like, Judge still in the building. Judge is still in the building. We're gonna get through this. We gonna make it. We gonna make it. We gonna make it happen. Thank you, Judge. We 2 hours in deep in here. He started talking about the baby oil and stuff like that. And the lubricants and Diddy gonna Diddy. And ain't no pity in the heart of the Diddy. Yes, sir. We can hear you. Can you hear us? Hear me, rather?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Oh, I can hear you now. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you about to see what they do. Is funny how they do that. They take a commercial break or something.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I've had clients that got charged with the man.
Oh, there you go. Woo, Lord have mercy. What's going on? What's going on? Y'all think this stuff is like, oh, it's just technical glitches. This is the government at its finest. This is like social media. It's the new COINTELPRO. We all being programmed. We all on different programs, but the show will go on. The marathon continues, but this is what happens because Judge Joe Brown, like you said, on every platform,
testing 1, 2.
Yes, sir. He upgraded his tech on his end. No, Judge got money. He got pockets.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I can't hear you.
Okay, you gotta come back in.
Let me duck back and come back in.
Yeah, but this is like, y'all don't understand. This is entertainment, but it's not really entertainment. This is like, we sounded out the call, man. This is like, this gonna get worse if the wrong people get put in place. If the wrong puppets get put in place and got their strings get pulled. Anybody who is speaking out and going against the status quo, they are enemies of this so-called state of disarray that we are in. And we, the people, must realize we must take back the narrative. We must reclaim our power and reclaim our time. And shout out to Judge Joe Brown, because people want to character assassinate people. They want to, bring down Judge. Judge don't have to do the stuff that he's doing for us to make himself accessible. I'm not the world's biggest platform by any means, but at the same time, Judge see the importance of connecting with people where they at, and he has such a brilliant mind and knows so much information about the law. And just have the experiences. He has so many different experiences and lives that he has led. He has led a full purpose-driven life. Hopefully we get him back on very soon. But even when We All Be, like, I'm on We All Be TV 2, please subscribe, folks, to We All Be TV 2 while you can, because they We All Be TV has been compromised. I put a lot of blood and sweat and tears into that channel, and they demonetized the platform. See, Candace Owens is just now going through with a lot of us, lesser known small content creators have been experiencing for years. They started with me back in 2018. They removing videos with Dick Gregory talking about, just critiquing story narratives. And he didn't do anything. He didn't say anything inflammatory. But like my uncle Herb, who told me whose birthday's today, we spoke at length about a couple hours several days ago. He said, Ron, you're just inflammatory, Ron Jr. You're inflammatory. Not because I say degrading or demeaning or disrespectful things, because I provoke thought in people. I provoke people to think about things in a different way and from a different perspective. And so when you have elders that are like Judge Joe Brown who make themselves available, resources, time, experience, and wisdom, you gotta pay respect to that. So it's very important, man. This is y'all think it's entertainment, but nah, we're fighting. We on the front lines fighting for our lives because these are indeed, in the words of the great Alex Jones, info wars, info wars, info wars. Judge, can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. Now, by
Okay.
the way, as to who you should vote for this November, this is an illustration of why you do not need to vote for the Harris Walls ticket. See, they're getting away with this as bold as they can be. And my phone says there's an unauthorized device that is in on this line.
It
So
probably
I
them the
told
three
you
letter
what I'm
people.
having to do to get through so I could even get through with what I'm using for a hotspot. Apparently, they found it. So anyway,
And you
yeah,
laugh
what I,
about Judge, but they are really blocking you. They really trying
yeah,
to stop you from getting that message out. You're a very powerful man, and we thank you for your service to this country.
thank you. See,
Yeah.
what I was saying is this, or I told you I represented people that got busted for the Mann Act.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
what I'd get in their indictments would be on about such and such date, the defendant did cause to be transported for illicit purposes a female across state lines, specifically from West Memphis, Arkansas to Memphis, Tennessee. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all you'd get. Well, what are you talking about? When did this occur? On or about such and such dates. What are they talking about? I don't know, man. What, like all you're entitled to if you file your motions, unless you get leave of the court for an extended period, you have to file all your motions within 15 days of arraignment, which means everything on the defense side has got to be hustled
Mm-hmm.
at breakneck speed. Meanwhile, the government has had months or years to prepare their case. And you have to have all kinds of hearings to get a slight clue as to what the hell they're talking about. So these characters put 14 pages worth of stuff about masturbation, lubricant, and detailing, events that aren't even part of the indictment, just inflammatory stuff, and then having a 30-minute press conference to explain to the public what you're doing. The feds don't do that kind of stuff. What are they doing? And then they turn around with the mayor and the same federal U.S. attorney for that district.
Damian Williams. Yeah,
Yeah,
Damian
he
Williams.
comes up
Yeah.
and he looks suspect to me. I swear to God, I ain't gonna
Yeah.
lie.
Mm-hmm.
So he details at great length all of this rundown, and I'm saying, wait a minute, this again, what is going on here? This is not how they do it. They just get bare notice, the bare minimum. And the court oftentimes gets put in a position of telling them they have to be more specific about what they're talking about. In this case, they just lay it out for 53 pages for 4 counts that would have ordinarily taken 2 pages to set forth. Between the following dates, the defendant did accept payments, blah, 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 that amounted to, and you can list them. Maybe you can do that without the long explanation as to what it means. So, I mean, it's like, what's going on here? This is
It's a
proper.
vendetta. It's a weaponized justice system going after so-called enemies of this administration.
And then the other thing, too, I was going to
Yeah.
add this. Yes, the Democrats are saying, well, he was formerly a Republican. Well, hell, so was Hillary Clinton. She was a Goldwater girl
Oh,
running
most
around
definitely.
little
Yeah.
micro mini cheerleader skirt, bouncing
Mm-hmm.
around, high kicking her legs for Barry Goldwater, the Republican candidate against Democrat Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Goldwater got his ass kicked in that election badly. And she was also president of the Young Republican Club at Wesley All Girls University for 3 years. I guess she got some Bill D when she ran into him at Yale Law School. And frankly, Yale is a depressing place. I have been a guest lecturer there. I got accepted there, but I didn't want to go because they don't have any grass around the place.
That's dangerous.
Looks
Yeah.
like a downtown building sidewalk and then the street, and that's where campus buildings are. And it was dark and gloomy. But anyway, I think of it, I would have been there at the same time they were. But I'm glad I stayed at UCLA. It was a lot more interesting. But the thing of it is that what difference does it make what party he was? You're trying to silence somebody, or more insidiously, I think this is something else too. They are now trying to claim that, well, we're prosecuting prominent Democrats, not just Republicans. We're being even handed. No, you took somebody that is at a low turn of his popularity with his constituents, and you are throwing him under the bus to make the point that you are prosecuting somebody on the Democrat side, and it's just a sham. The other thing is that he was turning on you when his constituents were saying, hell no, dude, you ain't coming back up in here again with making this place a sanctuary city, not with all the hell we've had. And he started talking against that, so he had to go. So this is just a sham showpiece thing. It's just like, guess who else did that?
Right.
1930s. It's called the showpiece trial. The Nazis were famous for that. So
We,
were the communists under Stalin, a showpiece trial where we get everybody in line by showing what happens to you when you step out of line. Yeah.
but you know what? I like Eric Adams because I saw his press conference. Like, even Trump is sympathetic towards him. He has empathy for Eric Adams because he could identify with the weaponization of the just us system. And he spoke about it. He said, I predicted this when he went against the so-called immigration policies of the Biden-Harris administration. But boy, give me hope about him. I believe he should see his term out because they got the mayoral campaigns coming up in 2025 up in New York. And the next person in line is the New York City public advocate for the mayor position to replace the mayor. This guy named Jermaine Williams, who's a Democrat, but he's a political enemy of the current governor of New York State. They don't get along that well, even though they're both Democrats. So I don't know if she's going to replace him. I think he should see it out. And what also give me hope, Judge, is the fact that he had a lot of strong black people, like at his press conference, standing with him. You know, something about black people. Well, people don't understand what's going to happen in Chicago. When black folks say enough is enough, we're going to stand and stick to this. This is a throwback to the good old days of the 80s and the 70s and the 60s. I mean, it could be. Well, even the early 90s, where black folks were standing on 10 toes down. We need that more. We need that unity
No,
with the
no,
right
no.
type of black folk. I think he's
Chicago
going to be fine.
Chicago Red is heating it up.
Yeah, I saw y'all interview, man, but I went to Chicago this summer. Black folks are mad. And I
Yeah.
love Chicago. So see, Judge, you used to say when you was running for mayor, I want Memphis to be the Chicago of the South. I said, what the hell are you talking about, Judge? I don't want to. Then I went to Chicago. I said, damn, I see what Judge talking about. Chicago is a gem. Y'all don't let the news. I mean, know your role. Don't be disrespecting anybody, town. But Chicago is amazing. I see why black folks love Chicago. I see why
Yeah.
anybody loves Chicago.
I used to, 50 years ago, when I was doing an intern thing at a DC think tank, I was back and forth between DC and Chicago. I stayed on 71st and Constance.
Yes, sir.
So interesting town. But see, here's what I would say to any black man listening, support Trump. They're running Trump
Wow.
like he's a black man.
Yeah,
If
he gonna help us
he
out a
has
lot.
been put through this, you can good and goddamn well bet big money and win. If anybody would take you up on the bet, that he'd be much more likely to deal with reform since it's been done to him than this witch, this bitch, this hoe they got up here who was in the business,
Scammer.
of exploiting black male youth by locking them up and coming up with some of the most horrendous things in the world. Do you know that when that hoe was prosecuting attorney for San Francisco, that she was giving out the stiffest sentences in the United States of America for simple possession of weed? And that wasn't to the white folk, Chinese folk, or Mexican, well, some Mexicans, but it was to whites and Mexicans. The stiffest sentences in the country for simple possession of weed. And God, for goodness sakes, this is San Francisco where everybody and his mama was smoking herb. Oh, and then let's forget, you cleaned your greens in the dormant.
I don't know nobody did that.
Where everybody was washing skid marks off their ass, which
I don't know about that.
Beat you. Plus, you don't clean greens; you pick them. See, she's being patronized. Well, she, what is it? That's pandering. And then the other thing, she smoked dope and she inhaled when she was in the dorms listening to Tupac. Tupac was 10, 11 years old when she was in the dorms, lying heifer. And when he cut his first release, he was 21, got his first hit at 23. Her bitch ass was sitting up as prosecuting attorney in Alameda County, California as an assistant DA. Lying heifer, or were you still in a dormitory in California someplace when you were a prosecutor? And did you dare smoke weed while you were prosecuting for it? Yeah. All right. See, she lies.
But why? Well, tell me, Judge, you are like an anomaly in terms of black male celebrities. Like all these black men or males, rather, are jumping to a defense, even with Janet Jackson, who is a black American woman and a cultural icon who comes from a black American family. Said, I thought her dad was white, and you had these so-called black male celebrities just read her the riot act and just drag her through the streets, like and you had black people defending Kamala over a actual black American woman.
What did I say earlier? When you have low self-esteem, you seize on some image that you think makes you look better. Remember the thing with 30 years ago wearing the Oakland Raiders starter jackets long, you didn't even know where the hell the town was located. Not you, sir. But yeah.
I know. I remember those days. I definitely remember those days. They used to steal starter jackets. They was like stealing folks starter jackets at Southland Mall and stuff like that.
Yeah, holding people up at guns.
Yeah, over starter jackets. Yeah.
I had one in my courtroom, and he was trying to apply for probation. That's where I got to. They said, "Where is Oakland located?" It's someplace. They called it the Midwest. Who's the starting quarterback? Huh? What kind of team is it? I don't know. They got a football helmet on the jacket. What do you think the team is? Football? Well, who's the quarterback? I don't know. Well, then why are you trying to hold this man up for his starter jacket? Well, I'm trying, they look cool. Yeah, all right. See, Kamala Harris is a walking starter jacket that the stupid Negroes are trying to deal with. And most of the Negroes who support her are kind of on that's their business, but they look a little suspect.
There's a lot of black women though, like they been dragging me into social media, man. Black women talking about your mama must you a disgrace to your mom. You must hate black women. I said y'all hate her. There's a lot of black women. I ain't gonna say. I have noticed misandry is real in the so-called black community. I had encountered cousins and family, so-called family and friends. They have been so disrespectful to me because of my political view. I look forward to voting for Trump a third time, by the way.
They are slaves. the walls of the plantation are the walls of their skulls.
But they say I hate my
plant,
mama and stuff, man. Come on, man.
They don't grow cotton anymore. They grow rainbows. And I know your mother. She's a fine woman.
Yeah, I saw my mom
And
yesterday. I mean, come on, man.
my mother is deceased. She was an AKA. She's
My mom's a
hiding behind
Delta.
the wall.
That's
But I
right.
resent decent women that I know being associated with that harlot is supposed to be the face representing them. No, And see, we have a lot of Negro females who have low self-esteem, so they want to seize on it. So I just said, okay, you want to pick that? I had a, talk with somebody on a call-in thing. I said, you want to be that? Oh, yes. I said, so are we R-rated here, or just beat what I'm saying? I said, well, how much pussy you give up to get your job? I said, well, then hell, do you want to be associated with that? You support it. You support what she did. How much you sucked off, And Janet got famous for what came out of her mouth, not what came in her mouth,
Right.
So,
People said the only thing that's black in Kamala has been Montel Williams and Willie Brown. That's the only thing she had black and the black DNA come from.
Yeah, well, I didn't know the only thing black. I've got a good.
I didn't say that. These people say
I got a good lawyer friend that went to school with her, and she and her husband went to Howard, and she was telling me that her husband kept saying, Kamala. She said, no, I don't. She said, yes, you do. See, they got married before they got out of Howard. So she kept saying, I kept asking him, who the hell was he talking about? And remember when you slapped me upside the head at that frat party? She said, yeah. She says, oh my God, was that bitch her? She was trying to take you upstairs and give you a head job. Hell no. That chick was doing that regular second floor action at the frat house. That's her. I said, oh, hell.
Oh, my God.
Damn.
Oh,
damn. See, I hear these stories, and, I don't have any reason to discredit the teller of the tale. And plus, this is the other thing I find interesting. Up till 2014, when she married Imhoff, who was a Hollywood lawyer and represented a lot of people in the communications and entertainment industry, the newspapers in California were really ragging her out. The LA Times carried a whole lot of that stuff about Willie Brown, and then she was supposed to be sleeping around to get the job with the Alameda County DA's office. And then there was some basketball player she allegedly had a thing with so she could get hired temporarily as a consultant with this thing. And then there was a thing with Montel. And you notice when he showed up famously, he had two women on his arm. Her in a lot finer specimen on his other arm. And he was walking in together with them, whole action. And there was the stuff that came out of Howard about what she was doing at the frat parties. And that was a reality, I suppose, back then. So they were really getting on her. And then there was the thing about her position with this medical commission. Willie Brown, when he was not mayor of San Francisco so much, but had been for a while Speaker of the House for the California legislature. He got her a job with a consulting board. And typically the members of that board were 65, 70 years old who had spent a lifetime in the medical industry, and they reviewed things. Well, she was getting paid $72,000 a year to show up for one, maybe two meetings a month, and she missed 20% of them.
Right.
And then he got her anteed up. She had no medical background. She was in her late 20s. Then he got a position when she was just getting to 30. on a board, and she was getting paid $120,000 a year to show up 1 or 2 times a month for maybe 4 hours total, and she missed a whole bunch of those meetings, and the Times was ragging her out about it. The San Francisco Chronicle and the Bay Area Picayune up there, they were carrying all these studies, and the Picayune used to carry cartoons of her coming up from behind the desk, giving Willie a head job with him with his tongue hanging out,
Oh God,
her grinning away and wiping. I mean, this was all out there. But when he married her in 2014, all that stuff stopped. And then she joined his country club, the Hillcrest Country Club in Los Angeles, which is a very upscale Jewish country club.
Yes, sir.
That has teenage Jewish children, and then all of that stopped. And then everybody started having an appreciation for her. And also, you see this thing with Soros. Well, some people got done in and silenced with this thing they're doing with Homeland Security and got held incommunicado when they started protesting or doing something about the mortgage foreclosure fraud. So what was going on in California was One West Bank that Soros was the major investor in, and Mnuchin, who was with the Obama administration. Well, I had 3 neighbors where I was, or one of the places I had at the time, who were losing their properties through this fraud. And the various districts in California reacted and returned huge numbers of indictments. I think there were 5,200 plus counts of indictment against Mnuchin and One West Bank. Well, Mnuchin and Soros financed Kamala Harris becoming California's Attorney General. And what she did was to consolidate from all over the state 5,200 plus counts of indictments as soon as she got in as California Attorney General and dismissed them. And Soros sold the bank 3 weeks later, I think, for $3.42 billion. So instead of him having to suffer the repercussions of fraud, Mnuchin goes on to greater glory, and he gets $3.42 billion for the sale. And there were a number of people, particularly in Maryland, that were trying to expose this. I mean, it got really nasty. Some people who were prosecuted got P. Diddy'd and held incommunicado, so they couldn't convey what was going on, and they were offered deals that if you just fess up, we'll let you go. No, I'm not going to change. And then they wound up getting actually physically tortured. And at least one woman I know, a doctor, who was working with an NAACP up there, and she was exposing the governor of Maryland and Soros. Well, the governor's niece was an assistant U.S. attorney in the area, and she persecuted this doctor. And they wound up bringing her in on a case that even the co-defendants in that case, strangely enough, gave affidavits. We don't even hardly know this woman. She didn't have anything to do with it, but the judge, who was a colored boy, it was his first trial ever as a federal judge. He let the prosecution get away with it. They had her declared, a terrorist threat. And she was held incommunicado. She got out because they were doing a sting on this woman's detention facility. Yes, that one.
Dr. Carmen Johnson, shout out to her.
Yeah.
So, book.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's the face. Yeah. I know well.
Yeah. You wrote the foreword for the book, Judge. You wrote the foreword for the book.
I wrote the foreword for that book. So
it's a great book. The Pretense of Justice.
Yeah, she got out of the penitentiary or women's detention facility when this sting was going on, and they noticed that one of the female inmates had been repeatedly taken to the emergency room It developed for heat prostration, so they were putting her in a small cubicle, actually a storage cubicle, and they had installed heat lamps, so they were stripping her naked, putting her in there, and putting her under high heat, and she'd pass out from heat exhaustion, heat prostration, or heat stroke, and they were taking her to the emergency room once or twice every 2 weeks. So she's been trying to expose this. Trump was going to pardon her, but he didn't make it through the election, and now Jackass and Chief and his chief wench, Joe and the Ho, have been trying to keep her in. She's out, but they ought to pardon her because it was a wicked thing they did to her.
Oh yeah, her birthday was just on I think September the 15th, Judge.
Yeah,
her birthday, not the comment, Johnson.
I know.
Yeah, we got her back on the show. It's funny you brought her up.
See, that's the kind of wicked thing that this administration is doing, and what they are up to is not new. Kamala Harris participated in helping Soros out at the time in California. Soros was also doing this in Maryland, and that's how this lady got caught up in the process. And they are unscrupulous. This was actual physical torture that the Nazis had been doing, and they were behind it. And it reached all the way up to the White House, to the Obama administration. So we don't want that kind of thing back in, because I'll be gone, but some of you younger ones might be around, and somebody might be asking you, how did you let this happen?
Well, yeah, I got it.
Today we say, how did the Germans let this happen? Look
what's happening now. And the Nazis were the Democratic Party of Germany. They were the Democrat. They were the liberals.
You know what Nazi stands for?
Tell us.
The acronym stands for National Socialist Workers Party. National Socialist Workers Party. That's what Nazi is, N-A-Z-I, is an acronym for. So we have the Socialist Party. I don't know if it really deals with workers, but they're pandering to them. And
they're replacing the workers, right, with AI and all this. That's another story. Yeah. They phasing us out. We all, you know. But I want to touch on this. I think it's fascinating. I gotta get your take on this, Judge, and I'll wrap it up. I know you got lunch and stuff, things to do. We want to thank you for your time, because it's so valuable. You can't, you know, it's worth more than money or gold or whatever. But the Marcellus Williams situation in the state of Missouri. I don't call it Missouri or Missouri, it's misery. The state of misery. What happened to him this week, rather. And also, we still have H. Wright Brown with us as well, Jamil Abdullah El Amin, who, where's the outcry about what's going on with him? His birthday coming up October 4th. But like, it's funny, I never heard of Marcellus Williams until last week. That's the power of this wicked media, how they able to suppress things. And thank God for people like Judge Joe Brown and grassroots media and whatnot, getting the story out. But what's your take on Marcellus Wallace? Well, people talking about Project 2025. We've been living through Project 1619. What y'all talking about?
Yeah, Project 25, by the way, has been repeatedly denounced by
Trump.
Mr. Trump. It's a 992-page document. He's called it ridiculous. But yet Kamala Harris was saying with a straight face, he needs to explain why he has adopted Project 25. That's that Nazi thing again. Tell a lie long enough, loud enough, you can get anybody to believe it. Now,
that's right.
I know about Batson, which is what the issue was with the guy that just got executed. You remember Ron Ward's case in West Memphis, Arkansas. I wrote 12,482 page brief, hardbound, printed. Arkansas Supreme Court unanimously overturned his conviction on 3 grounds. One of them was Batson. But what I did, and this is 42 years ago, that these people didn't do, and I suspect part of the problem was ineffective assistance of counsel, they never raised the Batson issue at trial. Once you raise it at trial, the prosecution is required to put on the record what he used as the basis for his preemptory challenges. The defense did not in this case. So what wound up happening is after the fact, one of the prosecutors said on at least one of the challenges, we challenged the guy just because he was black, which would be a Batson violation. But the problem is under existing law, that is not apparent from the record. The violation has to be something you can read and see. And you have to get what is going on in the prosecutor's mind on the record, which is transcribed by the court reporter, so you can see it. You can't come back after the fact and say, but I was thinking wrong. That's not going to get it. But it would be new law, perhaps. I don't know where it would go. But it was on the governor to issue a stay. He had the authority to do that, but he did not. So the death is on him. And what was interesting about the case is one of the original prosecutors said, I exercised the challenge inappropriately because it was exclusively based on race. Yeah, but that's not in the damn record of the trial, in the proceedings. Now, I think what is going on is a lot of people, from jurors to assistant DAs, they get all freaked out. Judges get freaked out about the death penalty. The jury comes back and they've sentenced the man to death, and all but 2 or 3 of them are bawling, crying all over the place. And they call you back months later, Judge, did we do the right thing? I said, well, you did your duty and you have to live with it. I can't sleep at night. And you see, the ghosts come to haunt them at night.
Yeah.
And see, that's what's interesting too about career prosecutors. Sometimes they've been doing this so wrong that they get callous towards humanity. And I would say that probably the most scurrilous, underhanded, low-life, low-down, filthy human beings you can ever find are career prosecutors. Not all of them. Some of them are okay. But too many of them are, and they become that way. And it becomes a contest that does not involve humanity. The humans are no more than the tennis ball or the golf ball to be batted around to accomplish the task, and they become too cynical. And that's Kamala Harris, by the way.
Yeah, the Kevin Cooper situation when the man almost was put to death. They found some new evidence with DNA evidence, and
No,
she tried to suppress it.
They didn't find new evidence.
Okay.
It was in the DA's files. She had been concealing it. The state Supreme Court, California Supreme Court, ordered her to release it.
But you know what's crazy, Judge? Like, it's several judges out there. They said that they corrupted the case, like that. That police was in on a fix. We call it they framed him. They framed that man. He's still in prison. But you got judges saying, like, you go back to that remorse. They said he got framed. You got judges saying that the police framed this man.
Oh, yeah. And Kamala Harris knew it, and she had the exculpatory evidence in her files and refused to release it, even though she was specifically requested to do so. She lied again and said she didn't have it. And then the Supreme Court said, we have all the information that you do. You will release that.
That's some gangster stuff. That's some cold-hearted gangster stuff, man.
She's a bitch. She is a filthy, low-charactered hoe and a bitch.
Now, you know what? Yeah, go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
She's a Nazi. And see, look, even if she were black, which she's not, because her father claims his family is from India. They moved to Jamaica and got hooked up with the Irish side, and the Irish side owned slaves. It's not where he is descended from female slaves. He's descended from free white females who got hooked up through their children with a Hindu house servant, with the way he explains it. And he called her a liar and a fraud in a thing he wrote.
But he kind of weird himself, Judge. They say he lived like a mile away from the White House. He kind of like a weird dude to me too.
Yeah, but you notice
Yeah,
he did not attend her inauguration for either vice
yeah,
president or for attorney general of California. And there's a whole lot going on in that family that's not holy. See, the other point is he never intended to be a new citizen. He's still not. He's a citizen of Jamaica.
yeah. He
And
worked with the
I did
government on the
not meet
economy.
him
Yeah.
in the United States. I met him at the table for the governor general of Jamaica, me and my ex-wife. So anyway, be that as it may, even if she had any black African ancestry, she has no connection to the United States of America. Her parents did not come over here to immigrate in and become citizens. They had visas, academic visas.
Right, right.
Now, he got long-term visa status, but so did my now late mother-in-law, who always was a Canadian citizen. But interestingly enough, she was a delivery nurse in that very same hospital at the same time Kamala was born in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, my ex-wife was born within the same 12-month period in the same hospital. And I know what that birth certificate looks like. It says origin of mother. It says India. It says race of mother, Caucasian. She's not white looking, but she's a Caucasian,
Mm-hmm.
even though some of them are dark. Now, when it goes to father, it says national origin. It's blank. And when it says race, it says Jamaican. So the Jamaican should have been where the race is, or well, the origin is, not where
Mm-hmm.
the race is. Because on the official census of Jamaica, they have East Indian, they have other places, they have a certain mixed race, which they name. And you see, Jamaica is part of the English Commonwealth, where even before you had the Euro Union, you did not need a passport to come in if you were a British citizen or a British subject or a Canadian
Mm-hmm.
subject, or you were from Australia or New Zealand or Kenya or South Africa, or um, you were from India, or you were from Pakistan. Those were all parts of the British Empire. So, I mean, I was in Jamaica one time and I heard this guy speaking patois loudly, and I turned around. It was a Chinaman. I asked him where the hell he was from. He gave me an interesting story. He said, my parts were made in Hong Kong and I got assembled over here. So,
I like that. That's a
it's
great answer.
Chinese from Hong Kong, and they came over to Jamaica when the communist Chi-Coms were beginning to take the place over.
Well,
So,
yeah. Well, Judge, I hope you check out. You haven't checked out Candace Owens' latest podcast about the genealogy of
yeah, I saw
Come
it.
Queen, as you say. Okay, I love it, and
Come,
I hope she got protection. I hope she got security around her that she could trust. Like the president,
well,
because she's unveiling stuff.
it might be. See, I had that thing I told you about, that home invasion thing, when I had that
Mm-hmm.
girl Ray case. They'll do that. Unfortunately, they ran into me, I think. Uh,
you about to put that John Wick on their ass.
yeah, I had to do that. But
Huh?
anyway,
Well, Joe, you know, what I thought about the Marcellus Williams, because I got a question, a person from the audience want to ask you a question. I think we'd love to have your perspective on. But I was thinking about what happened to Troy Davis back on September 21st, 2011. I ain't gonna never forget. Like, this man was on death row. You even had former President Jimmy Carter, whose birthday is coming up October 1st. He'll be 100 years young. But even he said, y'all can't execute this man. It's reasonable doubt. There was no evidence connecting him to the death of the police officer. And I believe the star witness for the prosecution may have been the actual killer. And they put this man to death. And you had people singing "We Shall Overcome," and the police were doing donuts with their sirens on. And this man, why did he die? I was just like,
well, let
they
me tell
didn't
you
have
how
no real
bad.
evidence on him.
Let me tell you how bad it is. A lot of times, it has to do with incompetence of defense counsel.
Okay.
And you know, we've got this thing now where people send these ads out or letters out to people who got arrested and they're getting arraigned in General Sessions Court here in Memphis. So they don't know a damn thing about trying the case.
Yeah.
And they walk in and out of my courtroom. They'd have 10, 15 clients in there on a given day. And they've never argued a motion. They have never tried a case. And when a client says, hell no, I'm not copping out, I want to go to trial. And they get in front of a jury and it's a straight up disaster. And you got to appoint the public defender's office to back the fool up because he doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
And it's a really bad show. But then you get other stuff where the prosecution will pick the judge when they know an injustice has occurred. Like one, they came up in front of me. They wanted, I said, well, why are you bringing this here? Well, quite frankly, we are joining in and this is just a miscarriage of justice. So this guy had been in and out of mental institutions since he'd been 4 years old. He got convicted. His lawyer did 3 hours of research for the whole case.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't call any witnesses, didn't interview any witnesses, didn't cross-examine any of the witnesses at trial. I won't mention his name. And the person got convicted and sentenced to death. And the prosecution had a flash of conscience. Mm-hmm. And it got brought to my attention to do something about it. So I heard the post-conviction relief petition and I granted it. The person wound up being properly taken to a mental institution. They said, our evidence is that the man actually was confined to an institution at the time this was supposed to have occurred. He wasn't even at large on the streets. So it's kind of crazy he got caught up in here, but the defense counsel during the entirety of this thing on a first degree murder case, he didn't do but 4 hours of work.
Wow. That's sad, man. It's life and death. Yeah.
I remember one time I got partially reversed. It wasn't a murder case, but this guy sodomized his 11-year-old stepson, straight up pedophilia. Now, the charge to the jury says complete penetration is not required to commit this offense. Any penetration, howsoever slight, even the touching is sufficient to establish, of genitalia to genitalia, is sufficient to establish the necessary element of this crime. So this dingbat criminal lawyer, really a basket case. I don't see how this person got their law license, let alone got out of law school. Yep. Put their client on the stand to testify. And she said, now, you didn't really rape him, did you? You just put the head in. It was a leading question. And he said, I just put the head in and he started screaming.
Jesus.
I gave this 25 years. All right.
All right, good.
Maximum I could give him is a range 1 standard offender. The offense carried 15 to 60, but the range of punishment for a first offender was 15 to 25 under the guidelines. So when it went up to the state Supreme Court, they partially reversed me and reduced to 25 years to 20, in their opinion, said the most serious offense they could think of, or serious example they could think of. So that kind of thing happens. It's just the incompetence of putting somebody on the witness stand and asking them straight up with a leading question to admit that they committed one of the salient elements. Or how about this one? There was a case, we had a guy that was offered 10 years on an aggravated assault. He was a multiple offender. Prosecution had a case that involved a taxi ride, and the taxi driver testified as to the aggravated assault situation. Okay. His defense counsel got up and started cross-examining the taxi driver, and instead of the 15 minutes that the prosecution took, she stayed up there for 2.5 hours. And when she got through, the taxi driver had attested to 2 armed robberies that this guy committed, an aggravated assault, 3 counts of attempted murder when he shot 3 different people, riding around in this taxi with a gun to the taxi driver's head. And the defendant pulls his lawyer's coattail, literally, and stands up. Judge, could I just take this 10 years? This woman's going to get me in the election picture. So I sent the jury out, and the state said, well, the 10 years is still open. That's it. And we have some more big deal. So,
Well, Judge, I got somebody want to ask you a question. I thought it was interesting to get your take. Law Dog, she said, Judge mentioned Soros, who is absolutely a Nazi and sold his own people to Nazis to be brutally killed. I'd like to know if he is funding Antifa, I'm talking about, that organization, Antifa.
I can't speak on that because I don't have any firm information.
Mm-hmm.
However, he is much behind funding those who are going out and saying, we need to burn this town down because of George Floyd. And then it just happens that most of the businesses that are burnt down happen to be black. A lot of people get shot up, brutalized, and a lot of property damages committed. And then backing up cum queen, the humping hyena Harris, she, a prosecutor now, decides to flip-flop and starts raising money to bail the people out of jail who have been out there rioting, and then they go back and they do it and get busted again. The next day, she helped bail them out. Chicago, too, and up in Washington and other places around the country. An interesting thing. So he seems to have been behind that. And boy, talking about the Illuminati. There you go.
There you go. Also, I remember I was down in Ferguson doing the Mike Brown situation, and it came out not too long after that he put about almost $40 million to the Ferguson situation. That's why your Black Lives Matter movement really started formulating with the Rainbow Coalition that they put together. Like a lot of them people, there was an activist he selected or whatever. Even Cori Bush, the congresswoman, benefited from the Ferguson situation.
Yeah.
That was financed by George Soros. So it's fascinating to consider.
See, it's always when you have a scapegoat, kill him off if we get some political benefit out of it. Which also gets me to, I didn't finish the elaboration. Yeah. Death penalties impact judges. And some people, it doesn't. Now, I know we used to have these counseling sessions during judicial conferences. And you know what the subject was? The judges sitting around talking about how freaked out they got the first time they pronounced the sentence of death when the jury came back. And some of them break down crying, talking about, they couldn't sleep for weeks afterwards, and they'd get up and pace at night, feeling haunted about whether or not they did the right thing. But then it gets funny. Sometimes there was a guy on death row who was known as the executioner. He wasn't very smart, big guy. And I remember George Little, who was warden up there at the wall, and I was up there talking to a client, but I was a part-time PD down in Memphis. A.C. Wharton and I practiced law together. And he was the public defender. My previous law partner, Ural, had been the public defender for the county. And before that, I had been the public defender for the city. So I'm up there. He said, Joe, would you come talk to the executioner for me? I said, well, what happened? He said, he beat up 2 guards. I said, yeah. He said, but I'm not after X. That's what they called it. He said, I just have been trying to fight these 2 bastards for the longest time. They just will not follow the rules. So the warden and I are sitting up there talking to X, and the warden said, X, now you're not in trouble. I've been bad, warden. I picked up those 2 guards, but they were bad men. They was, that's right, X. That's why I want to find out what they did wrong. Now, how did they manage to let you get from where you were supposed to be to where they were? Did they open the gate? No, warden. Said, I broke the gate. So me and George are looking at each other. Dude broke the gate. He's supposed to be the strongest gate in the whole system. So George said, X, show me how you broke these gates. I don't want to get in trouble, warden. He said, I promise you, you won't. So this dude is like 7 feet 4 inches tall.
Oh, wow.
Weighs like 490 pounds. And there's not a drop of fat on his. He looked like, you know, they wouldn't have to do much makeup on this guy to play King Kong in a movie.
Wow.
He goes over and says, sure, warden, I won't get in trouble. He said, go right ahead. Bam! And he broke the gate.
Oh, geez.
George and I looked at, we're sitting in here with a Superman. And there ain't nobody around. I said, X, can you do that again? He said, well, can I recover about 4 or 5 minutes, warden? He said, go right ahead. And he busted down the gate. And the warden and me and him looked at each other. Oh, hell. Oh, hell. So George said, look, can I ask you a favor? He said, whatever it is, warden, I'm a bad man. I'm trying to redeem myself. He said, would you please promise while we do something about repairing these or getting stronger, would you please not bust stuff out here? He said, oh, warden, I've been a bad man. I promise not. Now, how did he get the term executioner?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think he really should have been put in for first-degree murder because there were some exculpatory circumstances, but he got put in, and it was basically poor defense representation. So while he's in there, they had a guy in there that had killed a priest, 3 nuns, and about 5 or 6 other people. So he was on the phone, and he wouldn't listen to the guards and wouldn't get off. And X came over and said, you really need to get off of the phone. They told you to get off. He wouldn't. So X took his hand. That dude had the biggest hands I've ever seen. He squeezed the guy's head and crushed his skull clump. So he's already on death row. Another somebody messed around and did this, and he had killed a bunch of children and stuff. So he wouldn't cooperate. He said, they told you to be good. So he grabbed like this, took his thumb, and broke the man's neck with one hand using his thumb.
This is like the real Green Mile, This ain't even real. Like, that's weird. Yeah. And the fact that he's in prison and he could break out at any time, like, he on death row at that, right? Like,
let me tell you what happens. I'm not sure who the governor was, but he got his sentence commuted and released. And you know what they did with him? They hired him back at the penitentiary to keep order. So somebody else worked up this, man, there's nothing happening up here. It's like you put him out on the yard as the guard, and he walks around everybody looking at him like that, said, you guys need to be good. Who the hell you to be good? Oh, man, that's X. Man, they lie about it. Man,
and the people he killed, though, he were bad people, right? I mean, the people that he killed, they killed a lot of people.
Yeah, he said they lie about it. They said, I didn't know. Yeah, man, dude done killed 19 people up in the joint, man. They pardoned him to keep order. He killed you with his bad hands, man.
But the folks he killed, though, were like not great people, not good people, right? They killed a lot of people. They were menaces to society, more so than he was.
So he was keeping order on death row up there.
I respect
Wasn't
order on
hitting
death row.
the ass out of line. So they commuted his sentence to time served and hired him with the
Well, he
department.
saved the state a lot of money in housing these guys until they wait Judgment Day, whatever.
Yeah, I think he killed 4 people on death row.
They funny, but did they have any appeals left? Did they have any appeals before they got killed left?
I have no idea. But I know George now was sitting up in there with Superman, you know, like, oh,
that
man.
is scary.
Oh, man, this ain't no
God.
Green Mile. That dude had magical powers, but he couldn't do that. Hold on a second.
No.
Hold on a second. Hold on just 1 hot second. Hold on.
This is what you expect. Judge Joe Brown show, one of his shows. Thank you, brother Mike Trenton, for the donation, because we sure enough couldn't use it, man. We appreciate you for tuning out to tune in and get in where you fit in on We All Be.
I had to rescue something from oversized puppy I've got around.
Oh yeah, yes sir, no problem. Well, I gotta ask a couple more things. I'll let you go, Judge. You've been pretty patient and wonderful as usual. But I had a situation with my family. I gotta get your advice, your whatever counsel on it. I had a cousin who was 23 years old. Her name was Detria Delaney. She went missing on July 29th, Monday morning. Her last living images that we know was captured on a ring cam as she was leaving the home that she stayed at. And she disappeared into the night. It was a car, vehicle, lights came on, and a couple weeks later, they found her body. She was buried near a home in South Memphis. And what's weird about the case, Judge, there's been no coverage, no local media coverage. I go on Google, on my browsers, refresh. I actually went to her funeral, which was on September 14th, and there wasn't that many people there because I was told by people that the person who was the lead suspect threatened people that they came to the funeral that he would kill them. And it's just really something weird. I contacted the media, and one person showed interest, but I never heard back. I got in touch with the family, but the whole thing is that some people told me close to the young lady, because she was my cousin, but I didn't know her like that. But they told me that it was 2 men. They said they knew what happened to her. They told some family members, and then they told the police, and the next thing you know, they went missing, and they found them dead as well too. So I'm trying to figure out what is really going on. Why is such a hush hush? There's nothing about this case in the media. And it's like, like, who is this person? Like, what type of power does he have? Is he an asset to law enforcement?
One of the unmentioned things, and by the way, try KWAM locally.
Okay.
And see if they can get to the bottom of it. One of the things that's going on is the police department's been ordered to not report or underreport violent crimes. And they've been doing a project of going back and checking out on the actual reports. And the FBI is saying crime's gone down in Memphis. It hasn't. It's been going up sky high. They're just ordered not to report it. That may be the case. Other thing is that there is a big organized crime situation around here, and they have infiltrated the sheriff's department and the police department, and some of the line officers are some of the gang members. They're part of the posse. That's the thing. Some of the school teachers around here, male school teachers, are part of the posse, so are some of the women. Interestingly enough, they have fewer behavioral problems because they don't rely upon the principal to do ineffective discipline. Somebody just visits the family home a day or two after the event, and some discussion is had, and the child seems to have a remarkably better behavioral pattern shortly thereafter. So this has always been an organized crime thing. You remember the firm, the Grisham
Oh,
Road?
yeah.
That was a reality because we've had some well-connected organized crime figures in this town. Some of them have been people of respect, so I won't mention them, but they've been very much hooked up with organized crime on a national level. In Memphis, they launder money down on Beale Street a lot, but nobody touches that. And they used to be into mall building and renovation around, operating around and about through this place. So it is what it is, and it used to be a retirement community.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have that situation. Now, Memphis has a lot of people that came in 50, 60, 70 years ago, 80 years ago from New York when they sort of retired or they were retired
Mm-hmm.
or they were told, get the hell out of Dodge City. And they
Mm.
came down here. So residual effects are on, and there's a certain barbecue place I told you about where they
Mm-hmm.
were laundering money, it looked like, and money got funny. And on Wednesday night at about 3:30 a.m., the proprietor turned up dead in a one-car wreck here on 55 going into Mississippi, just past Shelby Drive. Thursday night, his general manager died just a little shy of Shelby Drive on 155 going into Mississippi. And Friday, in the exact same place, the wreckage was still on the ground. The chief accountant died in a one-car wreck. Real tragic coincidence, you know.
Mm.
So,
Mm-mm. Well, it's Gridley barbecue, right? Gridley's.
perhaps.
I don't know, baby. Perhaps. Okay, I got you. But what would you recommend to the, I guess, her
What
mom or
I'm saying,
anybody?
KWAM. And the other thing, too,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I hate to say this, but
Mm-hmm.
after November, if sanity prevails, you might want to contact the Justice Department.
Okay.
The one they've got is the FBI representative who is the liaison with the local law enforcement. He's been spouting absolute nonsense about Memphis crime going down. And he knows there's a big lie where the police have been told to not report violent crime unless it becomes unavoidable. But KWAM's been doing a thing on that you might want to call. Hell, they
So
might.
who's K? How you spell that? How you spell K? Wham?
KWAM. It's a local station.
Okay. Thank you, Judge, for that tip. I'm just
If
surprised
you're
that
on X,
Memphis.
if you're
Hmm?
on X, just get at KWAM. Put that in. They'll bring it up.
Okay, I'll definitely
And
do that. Thank you.
you can listen to their morning broadcast. They get it so you can listen to the entirety. Contact them, tell them who you are, and tell them I referred you. They hell with what you do. They might have you do a
I mean,
regular.
I ain't gonna get that. I think I appreciate that, Judge. I just think it's weird because people said be careful. I said, man, we live in a world like this. What's the point of being careful? I mean, you let the inmates run the asylum, then we need some more Georges around here, man.
Yeah, you got to stand up. See, that's one of the
Yeah,
reasons nothing gets done in the city is because the people that run the place are too damn craven and cowardly to make the stands they do.
yeah, I
Did I
agree.
ever tell you the story about Jimmy Thompson?
No, tell us.
And then I'm going to check out. Jimmy Thompson had been mayor of Memphis and also sheriff for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is back in the 70s, and I was in night court. And there was this old guy in his 80s who had been busted. And back in those days, when the city courts still had criminal jurisdiction, which they didn't after 1980,
Mm-hmm.
they would lock people up in the old police jail, and there were no bath or shower facilities and very little toilet paper. So I saw this old guy, and I asked the judge's permission if I could advance that case on to the docket for that evening because the cop that did the arrest was going to be there on a traffic matter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had no more talk to this guy, and I was looking at the arrest ticket, and the back door of the courtroom gets kicked open. Bam! Jimmy Thompson comes in with a 357, Model 19 Smith in his hand, and he said, "Don't no son of a bitch up in here move a muscle." The police were all going for their guns until they saw who it is. And
Mm-hmm.
I was astonished when half of them dived under the pews to hide. What the hell? And he
Oh
walked
man.
up and he knew who I was. He said, "You Lawyer Brown, ain't you?" I said, "Yes, sir. I'm looking at the 357." He said, "Let me see that ticket. I bet you that's my man." Let's say his name's Jackson. All right. I don't remember what his name was. "Let me see Bobby Jackson's ticket." He looked at it. He read it. He said, "The arresting officer." He went over and he reaches over the wall and pulls this cop up from the pew, puts the gun to his head, said, "No, it ain't you. No, it ain't you." Got to the third one. "You. Let me tell you, son of a bitch. You put your hands on one of my niggers.
Mm.
Don't nobody touch my niggers but me. I'm going to kill you, your stringy-haired wife, your children, your hunting dogs, and all of your livestock. Boy, you hear me?" I think the cop pissed on himself. You know, he said, "I hears you, sir. Yes, sir, I sure hear. You know, well, God damn it." He said, "I'll give you another piece of advice." He said, "So you don't mess with one of my niggers, you better keep your hands off the rest of them niggers because you may touch the wrong one. I'm going to kill you anyway." And the judge said, "Mr. Thompson, Mr. Thompson." He said, "Shut up, boy. I used to fuck your mama on a regular basis. You may be one of mine. Now be quiet. Find something what to do." "Miss Jackson, come on." And Jackson walked on out with him. And the judge turns to me. "Hello, you there? Hello? Hi? Hey, anybody there?" Hello? Yeah.
Hey, Judge. Oh, okay. All right, family. I think we're going to end it. This is insanity, man. But thank y'all for tuning out to tune in to get in where we fit in. And I'll catch you next time. But Judge gave us over 3 hours of great content and information. Information is power, and power, rather, knowledge is the currency of the universe. So thank everybody for tuning out to tune in to get in where you fit in. And we'll see you soon because we all be in it to win it, man. Let's see. Okay, yeah, we be all be in it to win it. Thank y'all, blessings, greetings, and may you enjoy yourself because me, myself, and I should always be good company because once again, we all family. We all be family. Y'all take care. Blessings.